Hello and welcome to Chinese Novel Audiobook. Explore our playlist for more captivating novels, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 61, Return to Soviet Union. Toothpaste, laundry detergent, small household appliances, refrigerators, televisions, washing machines, air conditioners, clothes, food and grains. These were the items that Nie Zhenbang had managed to produce in various light industry factories nationwide over the course of a month, thanks to his old man's connections. A whole trainload of goods, gathered from all over the country and then stationed in Jingcheng. Under the old man's order, the Jingcheng City Military District dispatched troops to attach the sign of a military train, and it slowly started from Jingcheng Railway Station, bound for Mongolia deep in the northern desert. Nie Zhenbang, along with Lu Kun and Long, had also boarded the train to Mongolia. The train journey took a day and a night. By the time Nie Zhenbang arrived in Mongolia, it was already daybreak. As he got off the train, Yuan Xinghua came forward to greet him. Upon seeing Yuan, Nie also quickened his pace. Although in terms of official positions, he was just a civilian who relied on the power of his elders, and in terms of age and relationship, Yuan was his elder. Yuan meeting him was certainly due to this being the first operation between Warsaw and the Soviet Union, but there was also a certain attitude demonstrated by Yuan. "Uncle Yuan, your actions have put me in a very awkward position," Nie Zhenbang said, lowering his posture as soon as he started speaking. The saying that small details matter often determines a person's fate, perhaps it's these small details that matter. Yuan Xinghua also laughed loudly at this moment, patted Nie Zhenbang's shoulder, and said with a smile, "Zhenbang, you're too polite. Your uncle Yuan is a soldier. Soldiers don't care about these formalities. Your uncle Yuan may be rough, but he truly admires what you've done. Otherwise, I would not have given you Long and Tiger, two elite men. Come, rest at my home for a day, we have a lot of things to do tonight. I've heard that the military is being frequently mobilized in the Chita region. It seems they are also fully prepared. Wee hours of the night. By now, the entire Mongolia railway station had been put under martial law by the Border Defense 9th Army stationed here. A train slowly came out from within the station. At this moment, the original standard track had been changed to the broader gauge used by the Soviet Union. Since the breakup of China-Soviet relations, this was the first broad-gauge train that slowly entered Mongolia railway station's broad-gauge railway. Next, Nie Zhenbang, Lu Kun and the others who were waiting at the platform immediately followed and boarded the train. A soft sleeper compartment was specially attached behind the locomotive. At the same time, soldiers from the 9th Army were stationed on every freight car, fully armed, and looking solemn. At this moment, Yuan Xinghua, in military uniform, watched the train with a serious look and said in a deep voice, "Give my order. Open the broad-gauge barrier. Full-scale martial law." Although both parties in the transaction were military, under such circumstances, necessary martial law and confidentiality were still essential. First, this is not something glorious. Simply put, this is typical smuggling. It's just that the smugglers are the officials of Warsaw on one side and high-ranking Soviet officials on the other. Second, at this time, China-Soviet relations are in a delicate period. If it becomes known to all, it will not only affect Warsaw's international reputation and status, but also have some unpredictable effects on between the two countries. As the train slowly moved, it soon approached the border line. At this moment, the green safety signal light lit up on the other side's originally tightly closed and blocked tracks. At this moment, on the Soviet side, the perimeter was also full of soldiers. Seeing the situation outside, Nie Zhenbang nodded in satisfaction. It seems that Alexander Shevchenko and Mikhail were quite experienced in such matters. As the train entered Soviet territory, it immediately switched to the Soviet code. At this point, from the outside, there was no difference between this train and the ones from the Soviet Union. At the same time, the train slowly headed towards the Chita train station. As the train traveled a certain distance, the Soviet military gradually withdrew. They quickly disappeared into the dark night. Like Warsaw, at this moment, the cargo station in Chita was surrounded by soldiers from the Siberian military region, with the security perimeter being set 2 kilometers away. As the train pulled into the station and came to a steady halt, quite a few people were already standing on the platform. A quick sweep of his eyes, and Nie Zhenbang couldn't help but smile, turning to Lu Kun beside him. Kun, it seems these people are more anxious than us. Every single one of them is here. At the front, Mikhail and Gano stood together, and next to them were the two young men Andrei Levsky and Alexander Shevchenko. To Nie Zhenbang's surprise, Li Lishui was also standing there. Tiger, at this moment, was doing his best to stand beside Li Lishui. As soon as he got off the train, Ganokovich, a little drama king, came up with an exaggerated welcome and gave Nie Zhenbang a firm bear hug. Then he laughed and said, "Nie, my dear brother, you're finally here. We can hardly wait. In your Washaw language, we are anxiously looking forward to your arrival." Quote. The last idiom he said actually in Mandarin, which made Nie Zhenbang startled. Seeing Nie Zhenbang's reaction, Ganokovich seemed very proud and laughed. "Haha, didn't expect this, did you? I can speak Chinese now. This is my sister's achievement in the past month." Beside them, Mikhail also came over. Unlike the enthusiastic greeting from Ganokovich, which was obviously due to the relationship between the Ganokovich and Nie families, Mikhail also had an excited smile on his face. But his behavior was much more restrained than Ganokovich's. Similarly, Mikhail began in Mandarin, "Nie, you're here." Then Mikhail continued in Russian, "Nie, according to your plan, the first batch of the deal. We have prepared $1 million worth of weapons for you. Among them, there are a total of 50 AK-47 automatic assault rifles. Each gun comes with 10,000 rounds of ammunition. Moreover, we have also prepared RPG-7 40mm individual rocket launchers, as well as RPG-18 64mm rocket launchers, as well as the corresponding shells. The estimated value is neither more nor less." This being their first trade, it was unrealistic to ask these people, who hadn't yet tasted the sweetness of making money or really gotten their feet wet, to deal with tanks, planes or even aircraft carriers. Rubles weren't even worth mentioning, these people were basically penniless. Where would they get any rubles? The most they could manage were these items. Given the status of Andrei Levsky's grandfather, obtaining these weapons was not a problem for them. Even if the military factories were out, they could easily justify a batch being lost due to standard wear and tear by the Siberian military region. "Well done, guys, you have exceeded my expectations. The entire train is filled with goods worth $1 million. There are clothes, food, electric appliances, daily necessities, anything one can ask for. These items are in high demand in the Soviet Union right now. I believe, after these goods are transported to Moscow, you will make tens of millions of dollars in profit overnight. Guys, do we have any wine here? Let's celebrate our success with the fiery spirit of vodka." At this moment, Nie Zhenbang didn't care how cheesy his words sounded. He was like a Ponzi scheme salesman, trying to stimulate the profit-seeking cells in these men's brains. Ganokovich quickly brought a bottle of vodka in from the station. Everyone poured a glass and raised them high, shouting in unison, "Ura! Ura!" At this point, the two trains had finished switching engines. Nie Zhenbang's soft sleeper car was attached to the armament train. Seeing Nie Zhenbang's private car, Mikhail's eyes lit up, and he laughed, "Nie, you really know how to enjoy life. I believe, next time we come, we will certainly have our own private car as well." Nie Zhenbang also laughed, waving his finger and said, "No, Mikhail, you should have full confidence in yourself. I believe, we are not far from having our own private jet in the future. Isn't it?" After the first trade, naturally, they agreed on the next trade time. However, next time, what Nie Zhenbang would need is not just weapons. Half of it would be cash. After a brief exchange, both parties knew this was not the time for mere pleasantries. They got on the train with a tacit understanding. Naturally, Li Lishui also joined Nie Zhenbang on the return train. Once on the train, Li Lishui took out a folder from her bag and handed it to Nie Zhenbang. "Master Nie, this is the record of the transaction. 400 million rubles have all been exchanged for US dollars. Apart from the 200 million US dollars deposited into that account at the Swiss bank, the rest, as per your instruction, I have opened a secret account for you in the Swiss bank, and the remaining 130 million is all there." At this moment, Li Lishui looked up at Nie Zhenbang and said, "Master Nie, I have a favor to ask from you." "May I?" Chapter 62, Female Ruffian. Li Lishui's statement not only stunned Nie Zhenbang, but also Lu Kun, Long, and Tiger, who were standing nearby, their mouths gaping open. This was particularly true for Tiger. As Li Lishui's bodyguard for a while, he had witnessed her bravado and decisiveness in the Soviet Union. Her audacity, even men would cower. This woman, such a strong person, she actually pleads for help too. What are you looking at? Haven't you seen it before? After saying this, Li Lishui also began to feel somewhat embarrassed. In front of Nie Zhenbang, Li Lishui was quite a character. More importantly, the reason why Li Lishui was gentle in front of Nie Zhenbang had nothing to do with his power. Rather, Nie Zhenbang's series of actions deeply impressed her. Compared to the chain of military equipment exchanges, what she and her dealer colleagues did seemed to be child's play. Despite this, Li Lishui's admiration for Nie Zhenbang outstripping any fear she felt. Even more so when facing people like Lu Kun. Seeing Lu Kun's reactions, Li Lishui glared at him annoyed, but started to speak. At this moment, Lu Kun chuckled awkwardly. Hee, Li Shui, I was just curious. What exactly are you asking for Zhenbang? The expectation in Li Lishui's eyes made Nie Zhenbang curious too. A woman like her could rightfully be termed extraordinary. At the moment, however, Nie Zhenbang only gave a slight smile and said, Li Shui, you're helping with my work now, there's no need for such formality. Just call me Zhenbang and speak freely. With that, Nie Zhenbang turned to Long and Tiger. Long, Tiger, you're both retired. We don't need to stand on ceremony between us. Long cast a glance at Li Lishui, touched by Nie Zhenbang's words. Being a military elite, a soldier king, both Long and Tiger had carried out many security tasks over the years. They had protected individuals like Nie Zhenbang on many occasions. However, Nie Zhenbang was the only one who treated them as equals, stirring within them a strong sense of loyalty even unto death. Looking at each other, Long and Tiger both responded in unison, Young master, decorum should not be discarded. We understand your intentions, but this is our respect for you. Upon hearing Nie Zhenbang's agreement, Li Lishui hesitated. After a moment of silence, she said, Okay, from now on I'll call you Zhenbang. I hope you can accompany me back to my hometown. Will you? Nie Zhenbang was taken aback again. What did Li Lishui mean by this? To use his status and power to return home in triumph. He quickly dismissed this idea. For someone like Li Lishui, who seemed so detached from society, flattery was uncharacteristic, especially since he had always kept a low profile. What could be the real reason? Unable to figure it out, Nie Zhenbang didn't press Li Lishui further. Everyone has a secret. This wasn't a big deal. Then, Nie Zhenbang nodded. Fine, after the train arrives in Manjoli, I will accompany you. Where exactly is your hometown? Upon seeing that Nie Zhenbang did not delve deeper into her situation, Li Lishui visibly relaxed, responding, I'm from Enluo Township in Eguna City. The train soon arrived in Manjoli. After Nie Zhenbang and his party alighted, the military convoy will head south again, arriving in Jingcheng where Nie Zhenbang will decide how to handle the consignment. Now, Nie Zhenbang made a call to Yuan Xinghua. Borrowing an off-road jeep from the 9th Army, their team set off for Eguna City. Eguna City lies on the edge of Daxing Ridge, being the longest city bordering the Soviet Union in the entire Hulan city. The distance from Manjoli is approximately 300 kilometers. They were lucky to have Long and Tiger, two locals who had a deep understanding of the area. After forming up on National Highway 31 and traveling a few dozen kilometers, they entered Provincial Road 021. Throughout the journey, since they were traveling overnight, the speed was kept low. By the time they arrived at Enluo Township, it was early morning. At this moment, Li Lishui became agitated for the first time. Because of homesickness, Nie Zhenbang noticed that Li Lishui was trembling slightly. In Enluo Township, more than 90% of the population was Russian. Russian-style buildings were spread all over the town. Under Li Lishui's guidance, the car stopped in front of a wooden house at the tail end of the town. At this moment, quite a few locals who were already up had noticed. Seeing Li Lishui step out of the car, many of them paused before subsequently crowding around her. Evelina, how come you're back? Quick, get out of here. It won't be long before you can't anymore. The local police are still searching for you, said a sympathetic older woman, attired in typical robust Russian clothing, yet speaking fluent Mandarin with a northeastern accent. Li Shui, you should get going. Your younger brother's in prison right now. The year after you left, he was sentenced. Accused of harboring criminals and hooliganism. If it weren't for our opposition and the preferential policy for ethnic minorities, he'd probably have been shot dead already. Now he's sentenced to 15 years. You can't let him serve this sentence for nothing, another old man advised. Upon hearing these words, tears welled up in Li Lishui's eyes. At that moment, the door to Li Lishui's home swung open from the inside. The commotion outside had alerted her family. A woman in her 40s walked out of the house. At the sight of Li Lishui, the woman paused, rubbed her eyes, and then rushed over, saying, Lishui, my Lishui, how did you get back? My child. Although the woman was also dressed in traditional Russian attire, she was Han Chinese, explaining Li Lishui's beauty. She likely inherited her mother's Li surname. After her initial thrill, Li Lishui's mother released her and anxiously said, Lishui, go see your grandmother and leave quickly. Right now, they're still after you. You must leave immediately. It'll be too late if they receive the news. Li Lishui whimpered, abruptly knelt down and said, Mom, it's all my fault. Everything is my mistake. If not for me, Dad wouldn't have died, and my brother wouldn't be in jail. It's all my fault. At that moment, when the noise outside reached a certain level, a Russian woman in her 60s emerged from the house. She had a pronounced brow bone and had a stumbling gait. The old woman was blind. Perhaps because of her blindness, the old woman's hearing was sharp. Struggling to navigate the steps, she called out, Yuong, Yuong, is Li Shui back? Is it Li Shui? Is it my Evelina? Upon hearing the old woman's voice, Li Lishui promptly stood and rushed over, shouting, Grandma, it's me. Your Evelina is back. At that moment, Nie Zhenbang was puzzled. He wondered about the reason that led Li Lishui to be unable to return home. No wonder she fled to Mongolia, no wonder she was working so hard to earn money. But, Nie Zhenbang was sure that after the time he spent understanding and interacting with her, Li Lishui was definitely not a bad person. So, why were the local police chasing her? While Nie Zhenbang was deep in thought, at that moment, 5 or 6 policemen, dressed in uniform and wearing broad-brimmed hats, were running towards them with an air of aggression from the street. The main street in Enluo Township was only 500 meters long. Within a few tens of seconds, these officers had surrounded Li Lishui's family. One of the officers, looking coldly at Li Lishui who was embracing the old woman, declared sternly, Li Lishui, so you're back. I'm from Enluo Township Police Station, and I declare, you're officially under arrest for hooliganism. Chapter 63, The Rightful Person Has Arrived. Hooligan Crime. Upon hearing this, both Nie Zhenbang and Lu Kun burst into laughter on the spot. Lu Kun, with no regard for decorum, was holding his belly and laughing hysterically. He pointed at Li Lishui, said, hooligan crime. Her. Did she rape you? With a guy like you, does she even need to harass you? Insolence. Who do you think you are, daring to openly obstruct law enforcement? Keep messing around, and we won't hesitate to arrest you too, charging you with contempt of state authority. Lu Kun's behavior and tone had infuriated the leading police officer. The officer glared fiercely at Lu Kun, speaking with an utmost severity. At this moment, Nie Zhenbang remained calm. This matter seemed to be getting more and more interesting. He didn't know if Li Lishui was a virgin, nor did he have the ability to judge a woman's virginity based solely on their appearance. From his understanding of Li Lishui and from the attitude she displayed in recent months, she was without doubt a woman of self-respect and dignity. He completely refused to believe she would commit a hooligan crime. The hooligan crime, as defined in the national law, refers to behaviors such as participating in brawls, causing trouble, insulting women or engaging in other hooligan activities causing severe disruption to public order. But no matter how Nie Zhenbang looked at it, he couldn't find any hooligan behavior by Li Lishui. It seemed like yet another example of civilians being oppressed by those with power and authority. Oh, arrest me. I don't believe this. From childhood till now, no one has ever dared to say this to me. Here I am now, go ahead and try to arrest me. Lu Kun might look obliging when following Nie Zhenbang's command, but on his own, Lu Kun was quite influential. In addition, his father had recently risen in ranks, so in Jingcheng, Lu Kun also held a relatively significant position. As Lu Kun spoke in his characteristic Jingcheng accent and with Long and Tiger watchfully standing nearby, the few policemen from the station also started to have second thoughts. This was all due to their strong demeanor. These men, who dealt with criminals on a regular basis and had a deep understanding of society, sure had quite the discerning eyes. Someone's true nature couldn't be hidden, and the guy standing in front of them was either a madman or someone they couldn't afford to offend. Ji Suo, don't be impulsive, take a look at those two guards, they're much better than us. That jeep on the side, it's got the 9th Border Army's plaques, these guys must be pretty serious. We can't afford it. In this situation, it's better for us to guard here while you go inform Xu Jingui. We just have to prevent her from running away. Whether or not we can take her away depends on Xu Jinggui's ability. A policeman muttered quiet words of advice into the ear of the lead officer. Ji Suo glanced at the military vehicle, took measure of Long and Tiger's formidable physique, and their seemingly ready-to-fight stance. Ji Suo, who was also a veteran, noticed these signs. After pondering for a moment, he nodded and said, "Xiao Wang, you keep a close eye on her. Don't let this woman escape. If she does, we will all be responsible for it." Having said this, Ji Suo immediately ran towards the police station while Xiao Wang, the cop he'd addressed, approached the group and said, "Gentlemen, we're just obeying orders from above. We can refrain from arresting her, but we ask for your understanding and cooperation to stay here and wait. If anyone attempts to run, don't blame us for being inhospitable." By this time, Li Lishui had also stood up. As she looked at Nie Zhenbang, she felt a bit guilty, aware that she had manipulated the situation. Noticing Nie Zhenbang's notable displeasure, Li Lishui bowed her head and whispered, "Zhenbang, I'm sorry. I know you're not an ordinary person. As I've thought about it from every angle, it seems like you're the only one who can solve this problem for me. If you don't want to get involved in the mess, 1'11", face it by myself. But I hope you could give $10,000 to my mother. If there's a chance in future, even if it means being a cow or horse, I will repay you." Nie Zhenbang appeared unflappable, showing no signs of emotional fluctuation as he stared at Li Lishui. "Li Lishui, honestly, I despise women who play mind games in front of me. How do you know that if you told me directly, I wouldn't stand up for you? As for money, I can give it to you right away." Having said that, Nie Zhenbang turned to Tiger. "Tiger, get $100,000 from the car. Consider it Li Lishui's salary." Upon hearing this, Li Lishui's face turned deathly pale, and despair overtook her. Seeing Li Lishui's reaction, Nie Zhenbang continued, "Li Lishui, consider this an advance on your salary. I don't want to see this kind of situation again. If it happens again, I won't be so courteous." All present were shocked by the $100,000. However, Li Lishui, staring unbelievingly at Nie Zhenbang, paused for a while and quickly said, "Zhenbang, you're willing to help me. Thank you, thank you. I thank you on behalf of my whole family." Looking at Li Lishui in her state of disarray, Nie Zhenbang didn't feel he was overly harsh. While Li Lishui's beauty was undeniable, Nie Zhenbang had been skeptical from the start. Now he had a pretty good idea what was going on. If he didn't want to help, he wouldn't have come over at all. Right now, he just was giving Li Lishui a warning. After all, what Li Lishui was doing was extremely important to him, and with their transaction getting deeper, there might be highly confidential things involved in the future. Indulgence now could lead to major problems later. Nie Zhenbang preferred to be proactive, taking precautions before anything happened. Within an hour, two military green Cherokees were tearing towards them at high speed, only slowing down and screeching to a halt as they neared. The piercing squeals of the brakes were only silenced when the cars came to a rest, and 6 or 7 young men descended from the vehicles. The leader, adorned in a white suit and sporting an elegant demeanor, had a slick parting in his hair, resplendent from the generous application of mousse. The leader was quite handsome, but a risible gap in his smile from a missing front tooth made him stand out. Upon seeing Li Lishui standing beside Nie Zhenbang, the young man's eyes lit up. After giving Nie Zhenbang a disdainful glance, he turned his attention to Li Lishui. With a raspy voice, he began, "Li Shui, I've said, why bother hiding for so many years? I truly love you. Look, your father died because of this, and your brother has been jailed too. Do you really have the heart to continue this? Follow me, I promise to get your brother out immediately. From then on, your family can enjoy the best life in the entire Enluo Township and Eguna City. Li Lishui's face hardened at these words, her voice filled with anger. Xu Jingui, stop dreaming. It was you who drove my father to his death. It was you who sent my younger brother to jail for some trumped-up punk charges. What could a 14-year-old child do to deserve that? Everyone knows what sort of person you are, not just in Eguna City. I would rather die than be with you. Stop deluding yourself. Jingui, stop waste time blabbering with this whore. I'd say just take her back, put her to bed, and settle everything. Why prolong matters? Your chasing her for 7 years has not been easy. This time, you should seize the opportunity and not let the bitch get away. A young man from the side looked at Li Lishui dismissively and guffawed. Listening to him spouting obscenities, whore, and bitch, rage welled up in Nie Zhenbang. After all, Li Lishui was with him, being insulted in this way would become a matter of his reputation as well. Lu Kun jumped in immediately, unable to contain his rage. Boy! Who are you cursing? Has your mouth been filled with shit when you were born, or what? Have you no manners? Didn't your family teach you the 5 stresses and 4 beauties? Hearing Lu Kun's interjection, Xu Jinggui's face darkened. He had been waiting for an opportunity to act. Seizing the moment, he ordered, boys, get this punk. Quote. Chapter 64 Don't mess around. Seeing the recklessness of this young Xu, Nie Zhenbang's brow creased. Although at this moment he had Long and Tiger with him, and he himself wouldn't be facing any substantial harm. However, in this world, it's not the common dangers but the unexpected ones that one fears. Immediately, Nie Zhenbang murmured, Kun, this kid seems to have a solid backing. Otherwise, he wouldn't dare to act so outrageously in Eguna City. You should call Liang Ligui right away and inform him about our situation. And see if he has anyone in Eguna. Though turning to Yuan Xinghua could also help resolve such a troublesome situation, considering the defense zones, this location fell under the jurisdiction of the 21st Border Defense Army. Going to Yuan Xinghua would inevitably involve a layer of communication, and although things can be resolved, it would indebt Yuan Xinghua to someone else. In this world, emotional debts are easy to accumulate but hard to repay. Thus, Nie Zhenbang did not consider Yuan Xinghua's side at this moment. Instead, he focused on Governor Liang of Caoyuan Province. After the last incident, Deputy Secretary Liang rushed to Jingcheng the next day. After meeting with the old man and Deputy Prime Minister Huang, Liang was satisfactorily appointed as the official secretary. Naturally, at this moment, Governor Liang was sort of a Nie family faction's man. Within the jurisdiction of Caoyuan Province, this was a relationship that should not be wasted. In the meantime, at the command of this young Xu, a group of people had already rushed forward. Long and Tiger stepped up to the forefront. Looking at these people, Long uttered in a deep voice, Tiger, don't hold back against anyone who dares attack the young master. At this moment, in the chaos, no one noticed Lu Kun slipping away. He found a public phone, then immediately dialed Liang Ligui's home. After 2 rings, as soon the call connected, Lu Kun hastily said, may I ask, is Liang Ligui home? I'm his friend, Lu Kun. From the other end, the excited voice of a woman replied, Kun, it's been many years. I've heard from Gifted Liang that his father's matter was greatly helped due to your introduction. Do you still remember me, auntie? At this time, Lu Kun had no patience for idle talk. He quickly replied, Auntie, I do remember you. I have an important matter to discuss with Gifted Liang. Please quickly let him answer. On his end, Liang Ligui had just gotten up. Recently Governor Liang was enjoying a period of success. Thanks to a fortunate turn of events, his father had hitched his wagon to the Nie family, achieving his dream of becoming the governor of the Caoyuan province. As the biggest contributor, Liang Ligui's status in the family had also gone up considerably. With his lazy demeanor long gone, he cut his long hair and opted for a neat buzz cut. Because Liang Ligui felt that as a member of the same faction, it was only natural for him to model himself after the young master and Kun. Kun, what's the matter? You're in such a rush. Weren't you supposed to be in the Soviet Union? How come you are back? Liang Ligui picked up the phone and immediately asked. Gifted Liang, let's skip the pleasantries. Is there anyone your father trusts in Eguna City? I am currently in Eguna City, and so is the young master. We have been cornered at Enluo Township by some worthless individual named Shu, who is the secretary of the Eguna City Committee. Send people to assist us immediately. I am worried about the young master's safety. I've got to go. Goodbye. Saying this, Lu Kun hung up the phone. In a situation like this, it was up to the Liang father and son to show their worth. He had done what he could and said what he needed to say. If anything were to happen to the heir of the Nie family, who had also introduced them to the Nie family, within the jurisdiction of Caoyuan province, then Governor Liang's political future was over. Looking at the phone, Liang Ligui was stunned. Eguna City, wasn't that a county-level city? How could he, being the son of a respectable governor, know anybody in such a place? The only people he knew were from Hulun City. Remembering the young master was still in Eguna, Liang Ligui didn't dare to take the matter lightly. Immediately, he grabbed his coat and yelled to his mother, "Mom, I won't be back for lunch. I have important business. I'm headed to Dad's." 5 minutes later, Liang Ligui panted as he rushed into Governor Liang's office. At this moment, Governor Liang was looking at some documents. Seeing his son in this state, Governor Liang frowned and reprimanded sternly, "Why are you gasping for breath? Are you in a hurry to reincarnate? Such a panic, what kind of conduct is this?" Liang Ligui couldn't care less at this moment. He quickly said, "Dad, there's been an accident. The third young master of the Nie family, Nie Zhenbang, has been pinned down in Eguna City by the son of the city's Communist Party secretary and his gang." Upon hearing this, Governor Liang was somewhat confused. He stood up and said, "What, the third young master? You little boy, speak clearly." By this time, Liang Ligui had also regained his breath. He sat on the sofa and said, "Dad, the third young master, the one from the Nie family, Nie Zhenbang." Quote. Hearing this, Governor Liang was also surprised. Immediately, he said, "Ligui, aren't you good friends with Zhou Taiping, the son of the Deputy Communist Party secretary of Hulun City? Now, you should immediately call Zhou's son and ask him where he is. Tell him to rush to Eguna City with the colleagues from the Hulun City Public Security Bureau. On my end, I will immediately arrange for you to depart with Comrade Xing Liu from the Provincial Department of Public Security." At the same time Governor Liang began to make all the arrangements, the situation at Enluo Township had unfolded. The lackeys of the young master, Shu, were quickly taken down by Long and Tiger. Each one either had a dislocated shoulder or elbow joint and all curled up on the ground, wailing in pain. Seeing these people daring to act this way, Shu was startled. He immediately exclaimed furiously, "Goodness! You actually dare to openly attack national officials. Have you lost your minds? Do you want a rebellion?" With that said, Shu turned to the nearby head of the police station, Chief Ji Yu, "Notify the Eguna City Public Security Bureau immediately. Have them send police reinforcements here right away. Arrest all these outrageous beings who dare to assault state officials. What kind of behavior is this? They all need to be shot." Hearing this, Nie Zhenbang snorted coldly. Seeing the people from the police station immediately making contacts, Nie Zhenbang becomes even more furious. In a low voice, he said, "A group of scoundrels. Originally, I only wanted to settle this matter peacefully. But since it has come to this, why not make a big fuss about it? Long, Tiger, take all these scumbags, handcuff them, and lock them up in Li Shui's house. I want to see if this world still belongs to the party, or to the people. Do they really think they can conceal the truth with their own actions?" The moment Long and Tiger heard Nie Zhenbang's order, there was no hesitation at all. When they retired from the service, Yuan Xinghua had instructed them to follow Nie Zhenbang's orders. Furthermore, having followed him for quite some time, both of them knew that Nie Zhenbang had a powerful background. At this moment, anyone who threatened Nie Zhenbang's life would face their willingness to shoot to kill, let alone just handcuffing. In front of Long and Tiger, two special forces elites of the army, even the police of Enluo Township Police Station had no chance to fight back. Except for one police officer who escaped to call for reinforcements, including the head of Enluo Township, Ji Yusuo, they were all subdued. More than a dozen men were all thrown into the living room of Li Lishui's house. At this moment, Nie Zhenbang and Lu Kun walked in with stern faces. Seeing the terrifying look in Nie Zhenbang's eyes, Shu was somewhat scared. This was the first time he had been thrown on the ground, the first time he had been handcuffed. Shu was feeling a mix of anger and humiliation. Looking at Nie Zhenbang, Shu was losing his confidence. Nevertheless, he still growled angrily, What are you trying to do? Do you know the consequences of assaulting me? My relationship with Guo Yunliang, the son of Mayor Guo of Hulan City, is extraordinary. You better think carefully. Before Nie Zhenbang could respond, Lu Kun started to laugh carelessly, Mayor Guo. Quite a hefty official. I'm so scared. You, young Master Shu, have such a profound background, how dare I lay my hands on you? On the face of it, Lu Kun has a kind smile. But when he started to act, he didn't hesitate at all. He slapped Shu across the face. Instantly, Shu's face had 5 red marks. At the same time, Lu Kun patted Shu's face, Young Master Shu, huh? Bullying men and women, creating wrongful cases. It seems that you have committed many sins. I want to see who can save your life today. At this point, Shu was scared. He wondered where Li Lishui found these fearsome people who really dared to take action. Covering the still hot area on his face, Shu trembled. You, what are you trying to do? Don't do anything rash. Chapter 65, The Municipal Discipline Inspection Commission arrives. Ha ha, don't be reckless. Shu Dashao, the son of Secretary Shu. That's a high-ranking official. Would we dare to mess things up? I'm scared of your father's vendetta, Lu Kun mocked with a laugh. Brother, since you know me, you should understand my character. My uncle has no son. I am the only heir in the Shu family. If anything happens to me, you won't get away with it. Brother, if you let me go now, I guarantee your safe departure from Eguna City. How about it? Shu Tianxi seems to have been completely spoiled. At this moment, he misunderstood Lu Kun's words and tried in turn to persuade him. Having said that, Shu Tianxi added another sentence. Brother, is a woman worth all this? I know, Li Lishui is indeed beautiful. A woman like that is 1 in a million. How about this, after I have sex with her first, we can share her in the future. Upon hearing this, Nie Zhenbang couldn't listen any longer. There were such shameless people in the world. Li Lishui's family's faces turned ashen. Li Lishui also stood up, her face full of fury. Nie Zhenbang immediately scolded, That's enough. Kun, shut this son of a bitch up. Slap him until he spits blood. In the meantime, get all the facts about this bastard's years of bullying both men and women, breaking the law and creating chaos, and make him confess. Even without Nie Zhenbang's command, Lu Kun had been itching to get his hands on Tianxi. Nie Zhenbang could play it cool, but Lu Kun could see very clearly, even though there's nothing going on between Nie and Li Lishui right now. But this stuff between men and women is unpredictable. Li Lishui, with her beauty, won't change much even another 10 years pass. Moreover, it's not like she's being brought home to be a wife, so age isn't an issue. Lu Kun was making assumptions without knowing Nie Zhenbang's true thoughts. In his mind, Li Lishui was already reserved for his brother. To bully Nie's woman is to bully Nie, which is to bully himself, so Lu Kun naturally had to settle the score. Immediately, Lu Kun also laughed and said, All right. Brother, don't worry. I'm good at this. Then Lu Kun grabbed Shu Tianxi by the neck and dragged him straight into a room next door. First, a crackling sound was heard from the room. 10 minutes later, Lu Kun dragged Shu Tianxi out of the room. By then, Shu Tianxi's mouth was swollen. His eyes emitted a resentful gaze. If he could, he would kill these people instantly. When was Shu, the grand gentleman of Eguna City, ever humiliated like this? Within a dozen minutes, it was enough time for the Eguna City Public Security Bureau to respond. At this moment, outside Enluo Township, irritating sirens sounded. Following, about a dozen police cars parked in front of Li Lishui's house. Armed police officers surrounded the entire house. Several people in police uniforms got off the police cars, accompanied by a few plain-clothed officers wearing dark jackets. At the front, a middle-aged man, about 50 years old, wearing black-rimmed glasses standing with a protruding belly, looked serious yet anxious. Looking at the house, the man said, Director Zhang, at present the criminals who kidnapped the hostages and publicly attacked and detained the police are inside. The municipal government attaches great importance to this. The situation has been reported to the Hulun Municipal Committee. Before any significant instructions are issued from the Hulun Municipal Committee, I order you to ensure the safety of the hostages and bring the criminals to justice." As the man finished speaking, a male officer standing beside him saluted the man and said out loud, "Yes, the municipal government can rest assured. Secretary Shu can rest assured. We will definitely rescue the hostages safely." Saying this, Director Zhang walked to a police car where a loudspeaker had already been installed. He personally took the microphone and said, "Listen up, people inside, you are surrounded. Please surrender immediately." Inside the house, upon hearing this, Li Lishui's grandmother and mother were both tense. They anxiously looked at Li Lishui. At this moment, Li Lishui was also somewhat at a loss. She never thought that things would escalate to this extent. Seeing the eyes of her elders, Li Lishui didn't know how to respond. She could only tightly clutch her elders' hands, anxiously waiting for the final outcome. At this moment, the policemen who had previously been like dead pigs lying on the ground, as well as the followers lying on the ground, upon hearing the announcement, cheered as if they had seen their family. They all burst into a hearty laughter. Shu, pitiful looking as he was, has regained his composure. Now missing a few more teeth from Lu Kun's recent punch, in addition to his original lost ones, his speech was garbled. He murmured, "Brother, look, the house is surrounded. Resistance is futile. How about you let me go? I promise, I'll ensure that you can leave safely." Gazing at Shu Tianxi's sincere eyes, any ordinary person might have believed him. But Nie Zhenbang just snorted, saying, "Long, show them your extraordinary flying knife skill. Let them know that if they dare to make any moves, Shu Tianxi's life is no more. All other matters can be discussed after an hour." Coming from Hulun City, nearly an hour is almost enough. This was another tactic of Nie Zhenbang. As expected, Long pierced a police lamp with his flying knife, then stoically stated from a spot beside the entrance of the house, "We'll resume negotiations in an hour. We're eating. If you want to collect Shu Tianxi's body, come and get it." The entire scene fell silent. All eyes turned to Secretary Shu. Director Zhang had a grim expression on his face before walking over to murmur, "Secretary Shu, I suggest going along with their plan. The one who just spoke is definitely a military genius. His tactics to evade the sniper were tricky. The people in there are not simple. In order to ensure Shu's safety, I advise exercising caution." Secretary Shu nodded. He trusted Zhang, who was an expert in such matters, and subsequently pronounced in a serious tone, "Let's take Director Zhang's advice. The priority is to rescue the hostages." With the passage of time, Director Zhang conjectured that the negligence of Nie Zhenbang and his colleagues might allow for a silent ambush. However, the moment two officers neared the house, a warning was issued from within. Director Zhang then dismissed the idea. At this point, he was startled. Who on earth were these people to have such incredible abilities? At the moment, on the road to Enluo Township, more than a dozen police cars from Hulun City were speeding along. In the midst of them, a young man and a police officer were seated together in the back seat of a black Santana. The young man was Zhou Yi, son of Zhou Taiping, the deputy secretary of Hulun City, and beside him was the executive deputy director of Hulun City Police Department, Lin Yongzheng. Watching the speeding landscape outside the car window, Lin Yongzheng asked curiously, "Yi, considering we're insiders, why are we acting so urgently to rush to Enluo Township in Eguna City?" Zhou Yi, who was also looking out the window, was filled with astonishment at that moment. The phone call from the provincial capital hadn't been very clear. Yet, this person was even feared by his own father. While Zhou Yi was very influential in Hulun City, in the face of this person, he barely amounted to anything. It was perplexing to see such a normally calm person behaving this way. As he contemplated this, Zhou Yi replied with a smile, "Uncle Lin, to be honest, I don't know who this person is. The instructions came from the provincial office. We are just enforcers. Since young Master Liang from the province is already on his way here, let's just follow his instructions. We can't go wrong." As soon as the car entered Enluo Township, Secretary Shu and Director Zhang looked over. Seeing Zhou Yi and Deputy Director Lin getting off the car, both of them went forward. Secretary Shu even laughed and said, "Old Forest and young Master Zhou are here, sorry for the trouble." We're still handling matters here. I fear we might not present a good image to our city leaders. Zhou Yi cast a glance at them, understanding that the person his father wanted him to protect was apparently surrounded by the Bureau of Eguna City. On ordinary days, Zhou might have nodded in greeting. But not this time. Zhou Yi coldly replied, Secretary Shu, the working group from the disciplinary committee of Hulun City will arrive soon. If you have any problems, discuss them with them. Uncle Lin, I'll leave it to you. Lin Yongzheng nodded. Looking at Director Zhang standing beside him, Lin Yongzheng immediately said, I am Lin Yongzheng, Executive Deputy Director of Hulun City Police Department. Now, I order everyone to assemble. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 66, The Unassailable Ones. The Municipal Discipline Inspection Committee. This must be a mix-up. Secretary Shu was taken aback, seeing all the Public Security Bureau personnel gathered by Lin Yongzheng. At this moment, he wanted to intervene and ask why they were retreating. However, at this moment, Zhou Yi had already started to stride towards the house ahead. Inside the house, young Shu once again heard the police sirens outside and burst into a hearty laugh. He looked at Nie Zhenbang, quite smugly saying, ha ha, listen to that sound, reinforcements are coming. They must be the elite police from the city. If you don't let me go, I won't bother to recognize what I said earlier. At this time, Zhou Yi spoke respectfully from outside, is anyone in there? I am Zhou Yi, the son of Zhou Taiping, the deputy secretary of the Hulun City Committee. I'm here under Governor Liang's orders. Could you open the door for me? Next to him, Shu Tianxi heard Zhou Yi's words and immediately burst into laughter, his triumph and arrogance blatantly evident. As the scion of Eguna City, a county-level city under Hulun City, Shu Tianxi spent most of his time in Eguna City. However, he was also very familiar with Hulun City and had quite a few dealings with Zhou Yi. Right after that, Shu Tianxi loudly said, Brother Zhou, it's me, Tianxi. I am inside. Brother Zhou, I am sorry to have disturbed you. Once we're out, you must give me a chance to show you my hospitality. While speaking, Shu Tianxi seemed quite self-satisfied, boasting, well, I never expected my uncle to have such deep connections and influence in the province. Had I known this, I wouldn't have worried at all. Long glanced at Nie Zhenbang and Lu Kun. At this moment, upon hearing Zhou Yi's words, Lu Kun realized that this was Liang Ligui's man. He then nodded and said, Long, open the door. There should be no danger now. As the door opened, Shu Tianxi finally struggled to his feet. With a face full of anticipation, he was about to speak to Zhou Yi, his face filled with smiles. However, contrary to his expectations, Zhou Yi scanned the room, his eyes finally falling on Nie Zhenbang and Lu Kun. As he tried to hide his surprise, he asked politely, May I ask, who is Mr. Nie? Nie Zhenbang was also evaluating Zhou Yi, noticing that this man, around 1.70 meters tall, seemed more like a southerner in body type and personality. Unlike the northerners, he was neither rough nor irritable, but gentle and composed. This level of excellence wasn't confined to big family scions. While considering this, Nie Zhenbang stood up, revealing a subtle smile and replied, I am the one. I apologize for the inconvenience this time, Mr. Zhou. At this moment, Zhou Yi was also examining Nie Zhenbang, who even under these circumstances managed to maintain an air of grace and calmness. This kind of mental strength was not something everybody possessed. Moreover, openly opposing the state's law enforcement was either an act of a madman or someone with exceptional background and resources. This kind of scenario would be insignificant in his eyes. Thinking about young Master Liang's hurried demeanor and the fact that he was rushing here with the deputy director of the Provincial Public Security Department, Xinghuio, Zhou Yi was puzzled. Zhou Yi did not believe that young Master Liang could summon a deputy at the bureau level. It would be possible if it were officials from a city bureau or a department director from the provincial department. But mobilizing bureau-level officials was a serious matter. Even if young Master Liang was the son of a governor, there were protocols to be followed even for Governor Liang himself. Considering this, Zhou Yi became more respectful and courteously said, Mr. Nie, I'm really sorry. I apologize for the discomfort you've experienced in my district. Young Master Liang is on his way from the provincial city, how about we first move to Hulun City, what do you think? Nie Zhenbang glanced at Li Lishui, her face full of hope. Nie Zhenbang knew very well what Li Lishui was thinking. After all, her brother was still in prison, serving sentence for some ludicrous hooligan crime. Looking at Zhou Yi, Nie Zhenbang found the guy rather interesting. This youngster was quite brave with pretty clear implications in his words. In his domain, despite Mr. Nie suffering discomfort and having young Master Liang's backing, local sentiments needed to be considered. Staying here would not only cause embarrassment but certain things would also be difficult for Zhou Yi to manage. "Kun, do we leave?" But at this moment, Nie Zhenbang was intentionally staying. Li Lishui's brother being imprisoned was no small matter, and everything was decided by the court's verdict. To overturn it, even with Zhou Yi's status, success wasn't guaranteed. The best way to handle these matters was to escalate them, to cause enough of a stir that Hulan City's leadership team would have to get involved. Then it would be time to negotiate. Lu Kun's eyes turned slightly, and he sat down with a carefree attitude, shaking his head and saying, "Brother, are you slapping me in the face? If we leave like this, we might as well quit running around in this city. Today, we must wait until young Master Liang personally comes here to see what kind of trouble we're in." Seeing Lu Kun intentionally playing dumb, Nie Zhenbang started laughing as well. "All right, since you've said that, Kun, then we won't leave." At this moment, Zhou Yi's face darkened. From childhood till now, no one had ever openly disrespected him. Even young Master Liang, who was the governor's son, addressed him warmly because they grew up like brothers. But at this moment, with Nie Zhenbang and Lu Kun ganging up, Zhou Yi was left in an extremely awkward predicament. His face turned crimson, his lips moved several times as he tried to suppress his anger. Then he managed a forced smile. "Since you want to wait, then please wait, Mr. Nie. I believe young Master Liang will be here soon." Liang Ligui moved pretty quickly. As soon as he got the call, he immediately contacted the Caoyuan Province Military District using Governor Liang's connection. The military district immediately dispatched a helicopter. After a little over an hour's flight, the aircraft was now hovering over Enluo Township. The whole day had been strange for the fewer than 2,000 residents of Enluo Township. First, Li Lishui, the township's famed beauty who had been away for many years, came back. Then, they were treated to a spectacle of a police siege. After that, the police from Hulan City seemingly apprehended the city police from Eguna. Not long after, a helicopter began circling overhead. My word, Evelina knows some important people indeed. So many people, such a commotion, it seems Shu has offended someone powerful, a knowledgeable middle-aged man whispered. A woman beside him quickly covered his mouth, scolding him in a hushed voice, "Hush. Watch your words, you might jinx it." At that time, another convoy rolled onto the street. Vehicles with Hulan City license plates led the convoy, the plates numbered from 1 to 5 in order. Vehicles from Eguna City trailed behind. Zhou Yi looked quite moody on the lawn in front of Li Lishui's house. By now, Liang Ligui and Xing Huio had descended from the aircraft's rope ladder. After the aircraft left, Zhou Yi went up to greet them. Lin Yongzheng, standing nearby, saluted Xing Huio, saying, "Greetings, General." Lin Yongzheng, from Hulan City Bureau of Public Security, reporting for duty. "Old Xing, what's going on here? What's with the commotion?" At this moment, the crowd parted to provide a path for a middle-aged man in his 50s, who walked in from outside. The middle-aged man was Cao Hoan, a standing committee member of Hulan Municipal Party Committee and its general secretary. As the leader of one of the largest cities in the country, or even the world, Cao held significant prestige even within the provincial party. Upon receiving several calls from the provincial government indicating that Governor Liang's son, Liang Ligui, and Xing Huio were visiting, Cao immediately gathered his staff and came over here. But Cao was not one of Governor Liang's allies. He was more aligned with the current deputy secretary of the provincial party committee, who was formerly the executive deputy governor. He was not satisfied with how Governor Liang outplayed him to snatch the governorship. As he entered, his tone was not very friendly, his words carrying an edge. Even though it appeared he was addressing Xing Huio, his words were a thinly veiled attack on Governor Liang. But Liang Ligui was no fool. Hearing this, he immediately huffed, commenting, "Secretary Cao, I am Liang Ligui. I heard from Zhou Yi that our guest from Beijing has yet to come out. Instead of venting, you should think about how to handle this situation properly. Chapter 67 State Compensation. Cao Hoan sneers, disdain evident from the tone of his voice. He addresses Liang Ligui, "Young Master Liang, what brings you here? You are not part of our organization, nor an involved party. Are you meddling in things that don't concern you?" For Cao Hoan, as the secretary of the municipal party committee of a city, he would have been fearful should Governor Liang have been present. However, Liang Ligui doesn't carry the same weight. At this moment, Liang Ligui is irate after hearing Cao Hoan's words. He hadn't expected Cao Hoan to be so oblivious to the current context. It seems as if Zhou Yi, the old man, may have a chance after all. Nevertheless, Liang Ligui casually responds, "Of course, Secretary Cao, you're not wrong. From the standpoint of position, I am just an ordinary person. However, Secretary Cao, I came here with Governor Liang's instructions. If you have any objections, I believe, I can get in touch with Governor Liang right now." Upon hearing this, Cao Hoan scoffs and strides into the house. As he enters, he sees people scattered on the floor, among them several public officials in police uniforms. His face darkens, and he retorts, "You guys are really bold. Do you still recognize that we are a country? Who gave you the authority to act in such a reckless manner?" Lu Kun is taken aback. He initially assumed that Liang Ligui came to clean up the mess. However, he was surprised to be interrogated upon entering. Lu Kun is also furious by now. At this moment, he has grasped Nie Zhenbang's intentions. The more chaotic it gets, the better Nie Zhenbang likes it. Immediately, Lu Kun stands up fiercely, glares at Cao Hoan and retorts, "And who do you think you are? Are these people your relatives? You come in out of the blue and start making accusations. Are you accustomed to pointing fingers like in the time of the Great Revolution?" Having said that, Lu Kun sits down again and in a deep voice, asks, "Where is Liang Ligui? Let him come in and talk to us. As for you." Lu Kun paused, deliberately giving Cao Hoan a contemptuous look. Then he coldly says, "You are not qualified." This remark immediately fuels Cao Hoan's anger. As the principal of the party committee of Hulan City, Cao Hoan is supremely domineering. When has he ever been treated with such disdain in Hulan City? Immediately, he roars almost hysterically, "Where is Lin Yongzheng? Where is he? Immediately get him here. Take all these lawless people who ignore the king's laws back to the police station for thorough questioning." Quote. At this moment, outside the door, Liang Ligui pulls Zhou Yi's father aside and in a low voice says, "Uncle Zhou, I don't want to say too much." Before the person inside agrees, "I can't reveal too much. I just want to remind you, the reason why my father was able to rise to power is due to the person inside. Whatever you do next, please use your own judgment." Zhou, like Zhou Yi, is not very tall. However, as the old saying goes, concentration is the essence. Zhou, too, is an astute man. Hearing Liang Ligui's words, Zhou expression changes with surprise. The fact that Governor Liang could rise to power with the help of others clearly indicates his background. Immediately after, Zhou gratefully nods and says, "Ligui, I will shamelessly accept this great favor of yours. If you need anything in the future, feel free to ask. Uncle Zhou will not refuse." As he finishes speaking, they hear Cao Hoan roaring inside. Zhou and the others are shocked. He exchanges a glance with Liang Ligui before stepping inside. Soon after, Xing Huio and Lin Yongzheng also follow suit. Seeing Lin Yongzheng, Cao Hoan angrily asks, "Lin Yongzheng, what are you doing? Your subordinates are detained by these lawless people, and as the head of the Public Safety Bureau, you are indifferent." At this moment, Cao Hoan was at the peak of his anger, even his usual composure and dignity were gone. At this time, Zhou said nonchalantly, "Secretary Cao, we do not yet understand the situation, and yet you immediately make an arrest. This seems somewhat inappropriate." Xing Huio also provided timely support. "Secretary Cao, I apologize. On Lin Yongzheng's side, that was my order. Before coming here, I had already received Governor Liang's directive to ensure the safety of our VIP guests. As for the rest, we will handle everything according to the law." Seeing that everyone had almost arrived, Nie Zhenbang also stood up. At this moment, his usually warm demeanor was gone. Nie Zhenbang looked serious and walked directly in front of Cao Hoan, saying casually, "You must be Comrade Cao Hoan, the secretary of the Hulun City Municipal Committee." With Nie Zhenbang's aura, Cao Hoan was actually taken aback. If Nie Zhenbang didn't look so young, Cao would have really thought a central leader had come. However, subconsciously, Cao Hoan replied, "Yes, that's me." As soon as he finished saying this, Cao Hoan reacted, his face darkening, ready to get angry. But Nie Zhenbang immediately waved his hand. Tiger stepped forward, handing a stack of documents directly to Zhou Taiping. Nie Zhenbang then said, "This is Mr. Xu Tianxi's self-confessed testimony after a sudden bout of conscience. You all can take a look. This comrade, in the 10 years in Eguna City, everything he did after his uncle, Secretary Xu, took office as deputy mayor, has outraged both the gods and the people." Speaking of this, Nie Zhenbang pointed to Xu Tianxi and said, "If you all don't believe me, feel free to verify. We absolutely did not perform any torture for a confession. This confession was entirely admitted without any distress. Furthermore, my friend, simply because of his good looks, was forced by this man to the point of not being able to go home, ultimately causing the death of my friend's father. Even my friend's 16-year-old younger brother was sentenced to 15 years in prison for hooliganism just over 3 years ago. He was only a 13-year-old child at that time. I don't know how such a large child could be accused of hooliganism." I asked Secretary Cao and Secretary Xu to explain. Nie Zhenbang then gave Cao Hoan a glance and continued, borrowing Secretary Cao's words from earlier, "This world is still a world ruled by law. I refuse to believe that, in this world, there are places without justice. If Hulun City is unreasonable, then I will seek justice in Caoyuan Province. If Caoyuan Province can't do anything, then I will go to the central government. There must be a place where justice can be found." Zhou Taiping accepted the documents and began to read. It was very detailed, not only recording the facts of Xu Tianxi's violation of law and discipline but also some of Secretary Xu's deeds. For example, Secretary Xu was perverse, once playing with a woman together with Xu Tianxi. There were also detailed records of how the cadres below over these years gave gifts to Secretary Xu through Xu Tianxi. At this time, Zhou Taiping casually handed the documents to Xiao Yunshan, the secretary of the Hulun City Disciplinary Committee. Now, Zhou Taiping would naturally not bother to save face for Cao Hoan. Given Cao Hoan's close relationship with Secretary Xu, even if Cao Hoan is completely clean, he now appears dirty. In any case, he can't continue being secretary. If he didn't seize this opportunity to step on him now, he would lose the chance altogether. Immediately, Zhou Taiping walked forward and said, "Mr. Nie, I am Zhou Taiping, the first deputy secretary of the Hulun City Municipal Committee. The joy of receipt and materials you provided are very important. I guarantee my honor and party spirit that I will thoroughly investigate the truth. Regarding Li Chunshan's wrongful case, I will hold the procuratorate and the court accountable for a thorough re-investigation. We will definitely give the victim's explanation and severely punish the relevant responsible persons. I wonder if Mr. Nie has any other requests." The last sentence was actually just a polite remark from Zhou Taiping, as there is no occasion now for an apology from the government. To be able to appeal for a redress of grievances would already be doing justice to you. However, Nie Zhenbang nodded at this moment and said, There are still a few people in Hulun City who understand the situation. I will trust you once. I have no other requests. This time, your government must provide reasonable compensation." Chapter 68, Offering Oneself. Compensation. Zhou Taiping was stunned for a moment, then felt somewhat embarrassed. He looked at Nie Zhenbang. Although Zhou Taiping knew that he was dealing with a person of significant influence, he couldn't afford to offend him. After a moment of contemplation, Zhou Taiping glanced at Liang Ligui, who was beside him. At this moment, the young Liang Ligui disrespectfully turned his head away. However, it was Zhou Yi who stood up at this time. After all, they were father and son, and it was clear that Zhou Taiping was in a difficult situation. Zhou Taiping couldn't make a decision alone. This was not something he alone could decide. Not to mention that Zhou Taiping was not the top authority now, but even if he were, the people under him were not necessarily all in agreement. Now was an appropriate time for Zhou Yi to speak up. Firstly, Zhou Yi too was not a public official. Zhou Yi's agreement did not mean the government agreed. These were two different concepts. Secondly, Zhou Yi had a good relationship with Liang Ligui. On this level, Liang Ligui would not embarrass Zhou Yi. Mr. Nie, government compensation. What kind of compensation method? Isn't this a bit, there is no such precedent. If Hulan City were to set this precedent, wouldn't the country fall into chaos? At this moment, Zhou Yi's tone also changed. After knowing Nie Zhenbang's background, any more arrogant remarks would be foolish. Nie Zhenbang laughed. As a reborn individual, he knew very well that in a few years, the national compensation law would officially be implemented. From then on, it wouldn't be surprising for the government to compensate the public economically. Looking at Liang Ligui aside, Nie Zhenbang waved his hand and said seriously, I don't see anything inappropriate. Think about it, how old is Li Chunshan? A 13-year-old child, who has not even finished his education, was arrested for being a hooligan. The impact on his body and mind is significant. This is one aspect. Furthermore, he lost his education and his future. The losses are tremendous. Even if he is released this time, he could not possibly return to school. How will he live his future? Does the state, the government, not bear any fault in this instance of wrongful conviction? Granted, these are individual acts, but they are indeed the adverse consequences of the misuse of national power. As a government, as a responsible government with a sense of duty, they must account for their errors and give the public an explanation. At this point, Nie Zhenbang declared firmly, compensation is necessary. As for the matter above, I will address it. I think even if this matter reaches the central government, the rationale will be accepted. At this moment, what Zhou Taiping needed was Nie Zhenbang's words. So long as Nie Zhenbang was willing to take charge of the matter, let there be compensation. After all, it wasn't his money. The money belonged to the state. This had nothing to do with Zhou Taiping. Immediately, Zhou Taiping nodded and said, Mr. Nie, we at the Hulan City Municipal Party Committee and Municipal Government will certainly attach great importance to your words. Having said that, he ignored Cao Hoan completely and turned to Xing Weio beside him, saying, Deputy Director Xing, you are a leader at the provincial department level. Let's hand these people over to the provincial department for the time being. I believe that with the strength of the provincial department, we can give the general public an objective and fair response. Simultaneously, the secretary of the disciplinary committee, Xiao Yunshan, who had read all the materials, said solemnly, Old Zhou, this is a serious matter. I think we should rush to the provincial capital overnight and report to Governor Liang and Secretary Cheng. At this moment, Cao Hoan's face was livid. He was directly sidelined by his subordinates. Where was his face, his authority? Immediately, Cao Hoan roared, Shut up, Xiao Yunshan, Zhou Taiping, do you two still have party principles, organizational discipline? Do you have any regard for me, the secretary of the municipal party committee? Before the two could answer, Nie Zhenbang interrupted, Secretary Taiping, Secretary Yunshan, do whatever you have to do. As for Secretary Cao, I think you should worry about yourself. If you have some free time now, you'd better run to the provincial capital. Otherwise, when the province gets involved, I'm afraid you won't get a chance to escape. That night, Zhou Taiping and Xiao Yunshan, along with Xing Weio, the executive deputy director of the Provincial Public Security Bureau, rushed to the provincial capital with more than a dozen police cars. Those involved in this incident, including Xu Tianxi and several police officers, were also handcuffed together and taken to the provincial capital. Early the next morning, Zhou Taiping and Xiao Yunshan respectively gave a detailed report to Governor Liang of the Kaoyuan Provincial Party Committee and Secretary Cheng of the Provincial Discipline Inspection Commission. Hearing that Nie Zhenbang had proposed for the state to offer compensation, Governor Liang also stood up, contemplated for a moment, and then made a decisive decision. He looked at Zhou Taiping and said, Taiping, you did a great job this time. Mr. Nie's status is very sensitive. In this matter, our provincial party committee can only provide assistance. All matters will be handled by the Hulan City Committee. I have only one request, to ensure that Mr. Nie is satisfied. Immediately afterwards, the team of the Kaoyuan Provincial Party Committee also quickly responded. Before the meeting, Governor Liang had specifically found Secretary Wu of the Kaoyuan Provincial Party Committee to discuss this matter privately. After learning about Nie Zhenbang's identity, Secretary Wu also took it seriously. He looked at Governor Liang with a different perspective. Although Secretary Wu knew that Governor Liang had influential support from Jingcheng, he did not expect it to be from the Nie family. As a provincial governor, Secretary Wu was well informed about the news from Jingcheng. He had heard about Nie Zhenbang's influence in Jingcheng. He was not someone who could be dismissed lightly. And he heard that he even had a connection to the grandson of the Nanzun chief. Upon thinking about this, Secretary Wu was somewhat grateful that Governor Liang had revealed this news to him in advance, and he immediately reciprocated, "Old Liang, I think we need to take this matter very seriously in our province. Now that we have entered a period of reform and opening up, we cannot continue to follow the old revolutionary path. This crackdown needs to be careful. There's definitely something wrong with the case if such a kid could commit hooliganism. I think we can lead an investigation team to Eguna City to conduct a special investigation. We have to give the people a satisfactory answer." After hearing the opinions of several major leaders in Caoyuan province, the Caoyuan Provincial Party Committee quickly made a resolution. The team, led by the Deputy Secretary of the Provincial Committee and Secretary Cheng of the Provincial Discipline Inspection Commission, stationed in Hulun City. Deputy Secretary Zhou Taiping of Hulun City Committee was fully involved and assisted her. On one hand, they revisited the case of Li Chunshan's hooliganism, and on the other hand, they suspended Secretary Xu of Eguna City Committee for investigation. Under severe interrogation in the provincial department, Xu Tianxi confessed thoroughly. Soon, the Provincial Public Security Department handed over Xu Tianxi's case to the Provincial Procuratorate. The Procuratorate initiated a prosecution and naturally, Xu Tianxi was subjected to severe legal penalties. At the moment, Secretary Xu, in the face of sufficient evidence and solid facts, confessed his own sins. Hulun City Committee immediately held a standing committee meeting to expel Secretary Xu from the party, dismiss him from public office, and transfer him to the judiciary. Following this, the Caoyuan Provincial Party Committee also made a decision. The former secretary of the Hulun City Committee, Cao Hoan, was demoted due to dereliction of duty and accepting bribes. Considering the circumstance of returning the bribe in its small amount, Cao was severely reprimanded within the party, demoted in his administrative position, transferred from Hulun City, and appointed as the deputy director of the Caoyuan Province Animal Husbandry and Aquatics Bureau. Moreover, he was the lowest-ranking deputy director. Desert Prison of Caoyuan Province. As the directly managed prison of Caoyuan Province, belonging to the jurisdiction of the Caoyuan Provincial Justice Department Prison Administration, it is where prisoners serving over 10 years are held. High walls surrounded all sides and numerous armed police officers patrolled the area. At this moment, at the entrance of the prison, 4 black Santana cars stopped at the black main entrance of the prison. Nie Zhenbang, Li Lishui, Lu Kun, Liang Ligui, and Zhou Yi were all waiting nearby, while Long and Tiger stood beside Nie Zhenbang and Li Lishui. As the gate slowly opened, a man about 1.85 meters tall, with a rugged physique, walked out of the prison with a blank face. Seeing this young man, Li Lishui could no longer hold back and ran towards him. "Little brother, you're finally out. It was me who harmed you, I'm sorry." Once the siblings had calmed down their emotions, Li Chunshan walked over. Looking at Nie Zhenbang, he knelt down and gave 3 kowtows. Li Chunshan stood up and said, "Third brother, thank you. You're now my big brother all my life. I, Li Chunshan, don't have many skills, but I have a lot of strength. I'm willing to give my life. From now on, my life is yours." Chapter 69, I am not Lu Shahui. Third brother, what is this? How is it called again, promising oneself in marriage? Lu Kun began to tease. His words eased Nie Zhenbang's embarrassment. Li Lishui also helped her younger brother up and carefully dusted him off. Meanwhile, she took out a new set of clothes from the car. She said to Li Chunshan, "Chunshan, I've been a burden to our family and to you all these years. Even our father is gone. But from today on, everything is in the past now. The man who killed our father has met his retribution. Chunshan, from now on, let's start a new life. Change into this set of clothes. Let's say goodbye to our past hardships forever." At this moment, Nie Zhenbang could see that as Xu Tianxi was executed and as Li Chunshan was released from prison, even Li Lishui's attitude seemed brighter. The woman who rarely showed any emotions managed to joke around now. The group got straight into the car and left Desert Prison. 3 hours later, the car arrived in the provincial city of Taoyuan Province and stopped right in front of the Prairie Hotel. At this moment, Li Chunshan, who had changed into a new set of clothes, was particularly noticeable. These two sisters, they were really something. The woman was beautiful and the man was handsome. They were quite a pair of beauties and hotties. The suite on the top floor of the Prairie Hotel. Here, it was temporarily rented out by Liang Ligui. As a newcomer to the power circle in Taoyuan Province, the governor's son, Liang Ligui, certainly had the clout and resources. Currently, Nie Zhenbang sat in the main seat on the sofa in the suite, while Tiger was resting by the door. Long had also gone over to the window. Seeing all this, Li Chunshan felt like a country bumpkin who had ventured into the city. At this moment, Zhou Yi also stood up and took out 2 stacks of 100 yuan bills from his bag, placed them on the table and then looked at Li Chunshan, saying, "Brother Chunshan, I am from Hulan City. Your case has been thoroughly investigated by the Hulan City Municipal Party Committee and Municipal Government. You were completely framed by Shu Tianxi, which led to your unjust imprisonment. On behalf of the Hulan City Municipal Party Committee and Municipal Government, I apologize for your experience. This money may not be much, but it shows our sincerity. Please accept it." This was a roundabout tactic played by Zhou Taiping, the newly appointed secretary of the Hulan City Municipal Committee. Instead of having the Hulan City Municipal Party Committee and Municipal Government come forward, he let his own son, Zhou Yi, do it. Although they repeatedly said it was on behalf of the Hulan City Municipal Party Committee and Municipal Government, everyone knew it was merely a formality. Moreover, 20,000 yuan wasn't a huge amount. Of course, for the common people of this era, especially those in the inland, it was a significant sum. In an era where 10,000 yuan households were still rare, a compensation of 20,000 by the government was already quite a lot. If there were any changes in the situation, Hulan City and Zhou Taiping could completely dodge any responsibility. After all, it was just 20,000 yuan, Zhou Taiping could afford this expenditure with any excuse. Although Nie Zhenbang understood Zhou Taiping's intentions, he didn't plan to expose them. In everything, one should leave some leeway for future encounters. This time, he had already caused quite a stir in Taoyuan Province. He had removed the secretary of a prefecture-level city, brought down a county-level city's secretary, along with his team. Taoyuan Province didn't comment. If he kept pressing on this matter, it would be excessive. Then, Nie Zhenbang also laughed and said, "Chunshan, this is a token of sincerity from Secretary Zhou and the Hulan City Municipal Party Committee and Municipal Government, a compensation for your years in prison. You should take it. If third brother tells you to accept it, don't hesitate. Later, I will have someone drive you home first to see your mom and your grandma. Once the family matters are settled, you can go to Monjoli and wait for your sister at the Golden Platform Hotel. From then on, stay with your sister and protect her. Now, your sister is working for me. Protecting her means you are also working for me." Li Chunshan was a simple-minded person, but he was not stupid. He was just straightforward and upright. Hearing Nie Zhenbang's words, Li Chunshan nodded, then stood up and said, "Sure. I will do whatever third brother says. I'll listen to third brother. I'll go first then, sister, take care of yourself." That boy, he was really naive. He left in such a hurry. At this moment, Liang Ligui also started laughing. "Young Master Nie, don't be in a rush to leave this time. Stay a few more days here. Allow me to treat you well." After the Liang family had become aligned with the Nie family, this time, Liang Ligui's words were much more relaxed than before. At this moment, he even enthusiastically asked them to stay. Nie Zhenbang also laughed and said, "Ligui, you are too polite. The overwhelming hospitality is hard to refuse. So be it. I will stay today and return to Jingcheng tomorrow." In a large private room on the second floor of the Prairie Hotel, Liang Ligui had ordered a table full of Manchu Han imperial feast dishes. Roast flower duck, roast gosling, the entire menu from the comic dialogue was served. The liquor consumed was vodka from the Soviet Union. This strong liquor had quite a market in Taoyuan Province. At the end of the meal, Nie Zhenbang was surprised to find out that Zhou Yi, among this group of people, had an astonishing capacity for alcohol. Including Dragon and Tiger, the 7 people there had consumed a total of 14 bottles of vodka. On returning to his suite, Nie Zhenbang was somewhat dizzy. Dragon and Tiger were already resting next door. But at this moment, there was a sudden knock at the door. As Nie Zhenbang opened the door, he saw Li Lishui standing at the doorway. She was dressed in a purple chiffon nightgown with black lace edging peeking from underneath. Li Lishui's face was flushed. Under the dim light, she looked somewhat beguiling. Her perfectly proportioned figure radiating an irresistibly tempting aura. Looking at Nie Zhenbang, Li Lishui seemed a little shy. As they stared at each other and after a brief silence, Li Lishui softly said, "Zhenbang, without you, I might not have avenged in this lifetime. My younger brother could have ruined his entire life. Zhenbang, I know your background is impressive. You are an extraordinary person. I'm of low status and not a match for you. But this is the only way I could think of to show my gratitude." As she spoke, Li Lishui took the initiative to embrace him. Her arm, white as lotus root, wound tightly around Nie Zhenbang's neck, while her breath was as fragrant as an orchid. With her delicate fragrance, she provoked Nie Zhenbang's male pheromones. In his past and current life, Nie Zhenbang had matured to the point that even his physiology at the age of 17 had matured where it needed to. At this moment, Nie Zhenbang couldn't help but react. Li Lishui's lightly clad body made her acutely aware of it. She blushed even deeper, and then murmured, "Zhenbang, be gentle. It's my first time." At this, Nie Zhenbang was completely stunned. After some waited in vain for Nie Zhenbang's response, Li Lishui looked up at him in surprise. Seeing Nie Zhenbang's stunned expression, Li Lishui took the initiative and kissed him. At this moment, Nie Zhenbang came to his senses. Immediately, Nie Zhenbang struggled to stand up, pushed Li Lishui away, and went to sit down on the edge of the bed. Looking at Li Lishui's puzzled expression, he said, "Li Shui, no, we can't. This isn't fair to you. You know I can't marry you. There is no future between us. Moreover, I don't love you. I only admire you. You are merely grateful to me. We are not suitable for each other at this moment." With tears in her eyes, Li Lishui looked at Nie Zhenbang and murmured, "No, Zhenbang, you are wrong. In fact, from the moment I saw you again, I found myself falling in love with you. I love you so deeply and so indelibly that I can't extricate myself. I don't care about the outcome. I care only about the present." However, Nie Zhenbang had now completely regained his composure. Being an illegitimate child himself, he had always been very strict about such matters. Looking at Li Lishui, a remarkable and rare good woman, he knew that there was no future for them. He then softly said to her, "Li Shui, listen to me. I'm no Lu Shahui, but nor do I wish to be a Chen Shimei. I don't want to touch you until I've figured out how to arrange your future. Do you understand what I mean?" Chapter 70, The Laughing Stock of Jingcheng. At this moment, Li Lishui's face was as pale as a sheet, hugging her knees rather pitifully, sitting on the carpet, her eyes filled with tears as she stared at Nie Zhenbang. A beautiful woman, an extraordinarily beautiful woman, presented herself only to be rejected. For a moment, Li Lishui seemed to have spiraled into self-recrimination. Nie Zhenbang also had his own bitter understanding of the situation. Born as an illegitimate child, the thing he detested most in life related precisely to this. He himself was an illegitimate child. Moreover, in the previous life, Nie Zhenbang had lived through a tragic period. In his heart, he was utterly repulsed by this aspect. This was the fundamental reason why Nie Zhenbang had always been quite indifferent to romantic affairs. At this time, knowing very well that he couldn't provide a satisfactory explanation to Li Lishui, Nie Zhenbang was loath to think that in the future, her child would have to follow the same path he had. But this was something he was unable to say to Li Lishui. A wry smile appeared on Nie Zhenbang's face. Then he said, "Li Shui, I'm sorry. It's not your fault. Moreover, I, Nie Zhenbang, have never belittled you, not in the past, not now, not in the future. This is my own issue, and I hope you won't ask what it is. Can you do that?" At this moment, with Nie Zhenbang's consolation, Li Lishui's emotions considerably stabilized. Then, with a boldness previously unseen, she suddenly stood up, rushed over and held Nie Zhenbang tightly. "Zhenbang, don't say any more. Whatever the reason, I trust you. Just as my brother said, my life is yours. Whenever, whatever era, I will always wait for you. Even if you end up in hell, I'll accompany you. All night, Nie Zhenbang remained by Li Lishui's side. The two of them, a lonely man and a solitary woman, slept in the same bed. That night, what Nie Zhenbang felt was merely warmth and emotion. It was disconnected from physical needs. Even if by the standards of the next world, Nie Zhenbang was once less moral than a beast. But sometimes, it is this simple: everything is unrelated to sex. Pure love or gay literature, whatever it may be, at this moment, Nie Zhenbang was truly pure, enacting a utopian kind of love. But Nie Zhenbang was very clear: at least, until he could find a reasonable and appropriate solution, he would absolutely not touch a woman. This had nothing to do with others and with the body, but it was a deep-seated shadow in Nie Zhenbang's heart. The next morning, Li Lishui got in Zhou Yi's car. She would rush to Mongolia, and when Li Chunchen arrived, the siblings would leave the country together through the border, heading to the Soviet Union. After the events of the previous night, Nie Zhenbang had left the matter of the Soviet Union to Li Lishui. At this moment, Nie Zhenbang was also boarding a plane to Jingcheng. The plane landed at Jingcheng City Airport in the afternoon. This time, Yang Onbong and Xiao Yali were there to meet him. However, they had changed cars. It was a newly produced Bentley. The car was black with a square and austere design, showcasing luxury in its simplicity. Seeing Nie Zhenbang look at the car, Yang Onbong laughed. This just arrived a few days ago. According to you, we should keep a low profile. The BMW 7 stands out too much. This car is better. With these plates, it doesn't attract too much attention on the streets. Off to the side, Xiao Yali huffed. Keeping a low profile is good, but it's more trouble. The day we got the plates, we got pulled over by the traffic police in West City. Hearing this, Nie Zhenbang laughed. In his past life, his second sister Xiao always had a fiery temper. Otherwise, she wouldn't have quarreled with Yang Onbong in Jingcheng to the point where she had to join the military. This life, although under Nie Zhenbang's intervention, the two antagonists had come together. Yet in front of others, Xiao Yali's temperament hadn't changed much. What others call ostentation, extravagance, these were ordinary things for Xiao Yali. Nie Zhenbang chuckled, and he and Lu Kun placed their luggage in the car. Long and Tiger, at this moment, also got into the nearby Red Flag. At this time, Yang Onbong walked over and spoke lowly. Third brother, why did you bring all these things? Since the big disarmament, military depots across the country have been filled with weapons. Although these are original factory productions and are of better quality than our imitations, it's useless for us to take them. The news has already spread in Jingcheng's circles, and everyone's saying Nie III has gone mad. As soon as he was seated in the car, Nie Zhenbang took the front seat and from behind, Xiao Yali also started to talk. Zhenbang, why did you bring back so many weapons? The stuff from the Soviets is good, indeed, but does our country lack weapons? This batch of goods piled up now, you've smashed your own reputation. Nie Zhenbang smirked. At present, the limitations of the country's top level and the military are too great. At this moment, the arms export of Huasha is only aimed at some countries with good diplomatic relations at home and abroad. But, wait until later. Once I dispose of these weapons, these people will be definitely surprised. There are still many wars abroad. The AK-47, this is the best assault rifle in the world. Even in the 21st century, they're still being produced. Once these things turn into green cash, those who laughed at me will have to shut up. At this moment, Nie Zhenbang's mood is very indifferent, just as the poet Tang Bohu wrote, others laugh at me thinking I'm crazy. I laugh at them for not seeing through. This era. It is an era in which opportunities exist all over the world. This era. The land of Huasha is full of gold. The same is true in the world. Like the Soviet Union at the moment, and Japan. Nie Zhenbang laughed. Second sister, are you still caring about these things? Your character isn't like someone who lives by looking at others' faces. This time you're taking care of so many. Ever since Nie Zhenbang entered the Nie family, Xiao Yali has been mingling with him, which is different from the children of Nie Guoping. Her uncle Deng Xianping and her older sister Nie Guoping are scholars with high spirits, and Deng Yuanchao is the same. Now, Deng Yuanchao, who is 25, is studying for a master's degree at Jingcheng Military Medical University and is planning to go abroad. He has little contact with Nie Zhenbang and others. Among the younger generation of the Nie family, Nie Zhenbang holds a transcendent position and is a mysterious figure. So, it has formed a small circle. Xiao Yali and Nie Zhenbang, together with Nie Zhenbang who is now far in exile, get along quite well. Hearing Nie Zhenbang's joke, Xiao Yali glared at him. You heartless. Isn't your sister angry for you? These guys, who has as much courage as you? If they have the guts, they should go to the Soviet Union to bring back a fleet of arms. It would be good even just to smelt them at home. Blunt Xiao Yali, her last sentence revealed her true thoughts. Nie Zhenbang didn't get angry at all, and immediately laughed. Smelt them. Second sister, I can't believe you'd say that. Such a good thing, there's no way I'm going to smelt it into steel. This stuff is worth more than gold. This time, you all just watch. I'll surprise you. Next time, I guess, there will be T-72 tanks and even T-80 tanks on the books. Hearing this, Xiao Yali didn't react much. But Yang Onbong beside them, his face turned serious. He looked at Nie Zhenbang and said, Zhenbang, tell me the truth, are you working for the military now? These two tanks are currently the main battle tanks of the Soviet Union, especially the T-80 type main battle tank, which just started to equip the army a few years ago. So far, there are probably no more than 2,200 of these throughout the whole Soviet Union. This is definitely the core military secret of the Soviets. If Warsaw can obtain a sample of this tank, its tank technology will soon catch up with the Soviet level in terms of reactive armor, main gun, power assembly and other firepower control aspects. The significance of this is self-evident. Nie Zhenbang just shook his head. The fewer people that know about this plan, the better. Smiling and playing coy, he said, Second brother, you know our party's confidentiality regulations. Don't ask what you shouldn't. Just have a good idea in your heart. The car quickly stopped in front of the Capital restaurant. At this moment, what Nie Zhenbang and others did not expect was that basically all the well-known figures in Jingcheng, including Zhou Chen, had gathered. The Li family, Wang family, Zhou family, Chen family and the military's Zhang family, plus the figures of Nie Zhenbang's group. At this moment, here could even gather a small Politburo standing committee. As soon as he saw Nie Zhenbang, Zhou Chen began to smirk triumphantly. The last time, he managed to undermine Nie Zhenbang in the matter of Audi, although he lost a deputy ministerial level cadre, but that was just a camp follower, not a direct descendant of the Zhou family. Zhou Chen didn't feel any heartache at all. The Zhou family didn't feel much either. On the contrary, it made Nie Zhenbang several hundred millions of RMB stuck in a wasteland in the south of the city. This is what made Zhou Chen most excited. This time, hearing that Nie Zhenbang brought back a load of arms, Zhou Chen immediately rushed back from Chunan province. The purpose is simple, to watch Nie Zhenbang become a laughingstock in Jingcheng. Check out our playlist for more amazing novels. Continue. Chapter 71, Wager. Whoa. Ho ho ho. Who do we have here? Isn't this young Master Nie? What, back from the Soviet Union? Zhou Chen made some snide comments. Yang Onbong looked calm, as if he didn't recognize him at all. Yang Onbong's ambitions have always been in commerce, and it seems the Yang family's current attitude tacitly approves of his choice. Zhou Chen, however, again and again, first followed the trend and made a supermarket to steal business. But then, he conspired against Yang Onbong on the Walmart automobile project. Now, this money is still held up. The buildings are under construction. But there's no interest in global cooperation. Although, this money was provided by Nie Zhenbang. But the shares are controlled by Walmart. This money, although it's not currently on Yang Onbong's shoulders, will eventually have to be paid back by the Walmart supermarket. How could this not provoke Yang Onbong's hatred? This surely is a huge grudge. At this moment, upon seeing Zhou Chen again, Yang Onbong glanced briefly at him and then walked inside. Xiao Yali at this moment was also glaring at Zhou Chen. Although, Zhou Chen acted very decisively, leaving no loopholes for Nie Zhenbang and his group. But this didn't stop Xiao Yali from blowing her top. Zhou Xiaosh, not bad. Dare to ruin my good schemes. I see, you must be itching all over from your stay in Chunan province. Yearning to rebel, huh? We all know what you did last time, there's no need to whitewash it. You just wait. What goes around comes around, your judgment day is coming. At this point, Xiao Yali walked up to Zhou Chen, brash and brawny as she had been with Yang Onbong in her past life. Looking at Xiao Yali's demeanor, Zhou Chen was completely unconcerned. Humph. Xiao's girl, I don't need you to point fingers at what I do. Did your father not teach you about the obedience women should have? A woman should not expose herself too much. It's not appropriate. What goes around comes around. I'm curious to see what you can do to me. Are you going to rape me? At this moment, Zhou Chen's people all laughed. Yang Onbong came out again with a gloomy face. Zhou Chen, you can try. Say it again. Nie Zhenbang also stood up at this time. Smiling, he stopped Yang Onbong. Second brother, let it go. It's just a small matter, it's not worth it, don't let it upset you and second sister. Let's go in. Despite Yang Onbong's business career, he has always been very easygoing. But that's just Yang Onbong following the principle of harmony brings wealth. Anyone who has made a name for themselves in Jingcheng's stubborn circles like him is certainly no pushover. He was quite a figure back in the day. At this point, Zhou Chen could never be intimidated. If so, the consequences that both sides would start fighting, then, I too would lend a hand. Ultimately, Zhou Chen would end up in the hospital, that's all. However, it's not the right time to fall out with Zhou Chen now. Looking at the current situation, as Comrade Zhuri's position in the center gradually stabilizes, conservative forces are gradually gaining the upper hand across the country. In some peripheral regions and some cities on the mainland, officials who support reform have been reassigned one after another. At this point, the reformist momentum has been significantly suppressed. If I fall out with Zhou Chen now, it is bound to make the Zhou family have some thoughts. After all, there has been a conflict with Zhou Chen before. If there is another falling out this time, it will definitely affect the neutral faction's stance. If something affects these younger generations before the head of state, before the main figures of the reformists speak up, that would be a big joke. Zhenbang, what do you mean by that? He's persecuting your second sister. Yang Onbong was somewhat surprised. Why is it that after a trip to the Soviet Union, Nie Zhenbang's courage has diminished? Next to him, Xiao Yali was also furious, third brother. But Nie Zhenbang was taciturn at the moment. Second brother, second sister, do you find this interesting? If we really beat him up, wouldn't we be just playing into his hands? A dog bites you, you don't bite back, right? Let it go. It's just a small matter, why bother? His words were extremely sharp. In the future information age, such verbal abuse would be typical. But in this era, it is absolutely brilliant and unmatched. Originally, Zhou Chen, who had been wearing a self-satisfied expression, immediately turned gloomy after hearing Nie Zhenbang's words, gazing intently at him. After hesitating for a while, ultimately, Zhou Chen didn't have the guts to step forward. After all, the impression that Nie Zhenbang had made on him was too profound. That resounding slap, whose grudge he hadn't yet avenged, had resulted in him being exiled. Now, although his family has slightly relaxed their supervision over him, Zhou Chen didn't dare to provoke Nie Zhenbang again. Brother Zhou, don't worry about it. He's a famous third young master, think of him as an almsgiver to a beggar, just let it go. Now that the third young master is no longer a trafficker but a collector of scrap, can't we be more generous? A hoarse voice echoed as, at that moment, Oh Jung walked over from a distance. Nie Zhenbang glanced at him and saw that everyone who had had even the slightest disagreement with him in Jingcheng had come, gathered in an unprecedentedly complete force. He then laughed and said, I was wondering who it was. Turns out it's Commissioner Wu's son. A pleasure, indeed. I wonder, how is your wrist? Hopefully you didn't fracture it again by accident. Oh Jung's expression changed and he replied disdainfully, Nie Zhenbang, you are nothing but a crude brute. I won't lower myself to your level. What do you think you are, merely a rag and bone man? What, thinking of switching to smelting steel? With your qualifications, you're not up to it. Master O, you don't need to worry if I'm qualified or not. I've got money. What's the matter? I can light my cigar with banknotes if I want. You think you can do it? Collecting junk, what's wrong with that? If you have the ability, why don't you do it? Moreover, what I have here is a treasure. What do you guys know? Babies who haven't even grown a proper amount of hair. If it comes to swearing, these people put together aren't a match for Nie Zhenbang. Why? It's because information in this era is too scarce. Just take something from the internet in later ages, in this era, they're all classic swearing phrases. These people, compared to Nie Zhenbang in terms of foul language, are like illiterates compared to postgraduates. There's absolutely no comparison. The words that Nie Zhenbang just said almost made Zhou Chen and Zheng choke. Arrogant. Too arrogant. This kid is overbearing, as if he doesn't care about anyone. Zhou Chen is Zhou Chen after all, although detestable. But, in the Jingcheng circle, he is a figure, much better than the waste that Zheng is. Soon, Zhou Chen caught a loophole in Nie Zhenbang's words, and immediately sneered, treasure. Slapping gold on your own face. Even if you're a clay idol, you won't be able to put gold on it. Is it just AK? How many do you want? Tomorrow, I will get the Jinling Armory to produce a batch for you. Zheng, at this moment, was finally able to react. He looked at Zhou Chen, extended his thumb, and also chimed in, this can also qualify as a treasure. There are plenty of these treasures in Huasha. If you need them, I'll get the city's military department to drag a few 100,000 out from the scrap warehouse for you, third young master. Anyone can puff themselves up beyond their means. If these are treasures, I, Zheng, will kowtow 3 times to you, and from then on, whenever I see you, Nie Zhenbang, in this city, I'll take a detour. What Nie Zhenbang wanted was just the words from Zheng. The time was not yet ripe to deal with Zhou Chen. However, there was absolutely no psychological burden to deal with Zheng. He quickly responded, Zheng, these are your words. Everyone here heard them. As long as I can sell these munitions, you remember your promise. By the side, Zhou Chen, quick-eyed, spoke up as well, everyone knows that the words of young Master Zheng are as good as gold. However, Nie Zhenbang, what if you lose? At this moment, Nie Zhenbang answered without hesitation, if I lose, I'll crawl around the city. Chapter 72, Return to the South China Sea 1. The 4-9 city is now generally referred to as the urban area of Jingcheng. However, at this moment, everyone knew that the 4-9 city Nie Zhenbang referred to was the circumference around the wall of the Forbidden City. Nevertheless, even so, the distance was enough for Nie Zhenbang to bear. Then, Zhou Chen finalized the decision, fine, I'll take the bet. But, let's get things straight first. You can only secure these weapons yourself. Don't pull any strings. If you do, it would be a mess. I too will sell it for you. Nie Zhenbang was taken aback, then agreed, okay, let's do it your way. After having dinner with Yang Onbong and others, Nie Zhenbang returned to the red-walled compound. At this moment, there weren't many people at home. Nie Guodong and his wife and Nie Jiamen had gone to the northwest. His father and stepmother were in the South China Sea. Nie Zhenbang greeted the old lady, who was very warm. The youngest son and eldest grandson were the apple of the elderly lady's eyes. In the past, the old lady was somewhat hesitant out of concern for her husband's feelings. But in this lifetime, the old lady has thoroughly expressed her love for her eldest grandson. After chatting with the old lady for a while, noticing she was getting tired, Nie Zhenbang stood up. In his previous life, as family changes took place, the old lady had pent-up sadness and died this year. Afterwards, his grandfather was incredibly grief-stricken, resigning from all his positions. From then on, the Nie family's fortunes plummeted, sinking into the second-tier families of Jingcheng following the defeat of the conservative faction a year later. At this moment, seeing that the old lady was still alive, although her health wasn't great, her mood was good. There was always a health care doctor accompanying her, so living for another 2 years didn't seem to be an issue. Nie Zhenbang also sighed incessantly. Then, he said to the old lady, "Grandmother, you should rest. I'll be heading to the South China Sea soon." The so-called blood bond is a kind of familial love. However, there are not only this kind in the world. In his previous life, Nie Zhenbang had a tragic personal experience. Coupled with the decline of the Nie family, his relatives were all in low spirits. His uncle had prejudiced views towards him but confined it to sarcastic remarks and did not go too far. As for Nie Guowei and Yi Shushan, they fulfilled their responsibilities towards him until their deaths. They may not have been very passionate, but they provided him with food and clothing security. Being so generous to a drunkard who was dead to the world was already considerable. Therefore, This time, with a fresh start, Nie Zhenbang realized that he didn't harbor much hatred against the Nie family, which is why he accepted the Nie family so quickly. The other kind of familial love he spoke of was based on time, like an orphan who was abandoned as a child but was raised by foster parents. Regardless of what happens, even if the orphan's biological parents come forward, the foster parents are still his parents. This is what feelings are about. A person without feelings cannot be considered a human, but rather a beast. Siblings are only close if they keep in touch. Without any interaction, even biological parents may not be more familiar. This was why Nie Zhenbang planned to go to the South China Sea. 2 hours later, the plane slowly landed at Baiyun Airport in Yuezhou. Just as he walked out of the airport exit, a young man aged around 25 was holding up a sign at the door. It was written with the 5 characters, Nie Zhenbang from Jingcheng. Nie Zhenbang had already informed his father before coming. As soon as he saw the sign, he knew this person must have been sent by his father. Nie Zhenbang then called out to DeLong, who was carrying the luggage, "DeLong, let's go, over here. The person picking us up is there." As they approached, the young man greeted him with a smile. "You're Zhenbang, right? Nice to meet you. My name is Li Wang, I am Secretary Nie's assistant." At this moment, Nie Zhenbang also extended a friendly hand and said, "Secretary Li, nice to meet you. Thank you for the trouble. Is my father busy with work? I feel bad that he sent you to pick us up." Li Wang was not very tall, about 1.68 meters. His hair was very short, making him appear energetic. He had thick lips and a relatively large mouth. With a pair of big eyes, he gave off an impression of sincerity and honesty when he smiled. Li Wang didn't have the usual ingratiating demeanor common to secretaries, leading Nie Zhenbang to have a favorable impression of him. As the deputy secretary of the Nan'an Municipal Committee, Nie Guowei also had access to a dedicated vehicle. It was a brand new Santana. This car, produced by the Volkswagen factory in Hucheng City, was considered the most luxurious sedan in Huasha Nation. Seeing this car, Nie Zhenbang thought of Audi. Ever since FAO had cut them out, negotiations between Audi and FAO had quickly come to a conclusion. Since inspecting FAW's production base, Dr. Han, the president of Audi's side, had personally visited FAO and signed a cooperation agreement to produce the high-end Audi 100 model. He suspected that within half a year or a year, all official cars throughout Huasha would be replaced with Audis. He needed to hasten his own pace. Since he had bested them once, he was determined to prevent Audi from gaining a win this time. From Yuezhou to Nan'an, following National Highway 39. All the way south, at this time, the National Highway 39 was certainly the busiest highway in the entire Huasha. Traffic was so congested that cars couldn't speed up. The relatively short distance actually took over 2 hours to reach the residential district of the Nan'an Municipal Committee. Nie Guowei's house was in the bureau-level building of the Nan'an Municipal Committee Residential District. The so-called bureau-level building referred to a similar concept as the general building in some military district compounds in Jingcheng. Those who were eligible to live here were all bureau-level cadres. As the second highest-ranking deputy secretary of the municipal committee, second only to the deputy secretary and the mayor, Nie Guowei's residence was a 2-story villa with the number 3. Nie Zhenbang couldn't help but laugh when he saw the number as he stepped out of the car. By this time, Nie Guowei had already returned home. With the arrival of Nie Zhenbang's car, Nie Guowei, Yi Shushan, and Nie Ziyu were all standing at the door. As soon as she saw Nie Zhenbang, Nie Ziyu threw herself at him, excitedly hugging his neck and whining, "Brother, you're so heartless. How could you bear not to visit me for so long? Bro, I heard that you went abroad. Did you bring me any gifts? I want Barbie dolls. I want chocolates." Quote. Ziyu. Upon hearing Nie Ziyu's words, Yi Shushan scolded her with a stern face. Nie Zhenbang watched Yi Shushan and couldn't help but laugh. He understood Yi Shushan's concern. After all, he was not her biological brother. That's why she feared that he might dislike her. However, Yi Shushan wouldn't understand Nie Zhenbang's way of thinking. During their later life, Nie Ziyu was extremely kind-hearted to him. Although her tone was harsh, it was only out of disappointment. In reality, once Nie Guowei and Yi Shushan passed away, the responsibility of looking after Nie Zhenbang fell onto Nie Ziyu. Had Nie Zhenbang not taken care of him, Nie Zhenbang might have died long ago without any chance of committing suicide. Mom, it's okay. I'm actually very happy that Zhenbang is so attached to me. She's the precious gem of our family. He then took out a set of Russian nesting dolls from the suitcase Long gave him, and shook them in front of Nie Zhenbang and said, "Zhenbang, this is a set of Russian dolls from the Soviet Union. Isn't it better than a Barbie doll?" However, Nie Zhenbang was pouting. She took the Russian dolls and mumbled, "But I prefer Barbie dolls." The reunion of the family felt much more harmonious this time around. This was largely due to Yi Shushan's deliberate efforts and Nie Zhenbang's open-minded acceptance. Upon entering the living room, Long proactively offered to help Li Wang in the kitchen. Nie Guowei then sat down on the sofa and patted the seat next to him, saying, "Sit down. I heard from grandfather about your trip to the Soviet Union. As long as you returned safely, it's all good." Nie Zhenbang smiled and agreed, "It's fine, grandfather introduced me to General Aselev over there. I even visited General Aselev's house. Peter mentioned you." Just as they were about to have dinner, the phone on the table rang. Li Wang quickly picked up the phone, spoke a few words, then covered the mouthpiece and turned to Nie Guowei, saying, Secretary Li called. He asked you to please arrive at the Municipal Committee's small conference room within the next half an hour, to discuss the issue of the Nan'e Airport construction." Chapter 73 Nan'e Airport. Nan'e Airport. Nie Zhenbang was taken aback when he heard the term. At this point, Nie Guowei had already stood up and dressed himself. He looked apologetically at Zhenbang and said, "Zhenbang, you see, this." Yi Shushan, who was standing next to them, also mildly reprimanded, "You're not a high-ranking official, but you seem to have a lot going on. The kid just got home, and we haven't had a family meal yet, but there's already another meeting. I really don't know what kind of work ethic you people at Nan'e have." At this time, in this era, it could be said that the entire cadre team of Nan'e was made up of the country's elites. Everyone's main focus was to fully devote themselves to their work and make great strides in building Nan'e into a model city for the nationwide reform and opening up. Facing his wife's complaints, Nie Guowei decided to stay silent, offering an apology with a smile. He then turned to Nie Zhenbang and Nie Zhenbang, saying, "Zhenbang, Zhenbang, I'm sorry. I'll have dinner with you guys once I get back tonight." With that, Nie Guowei grabbed his bag and quickly stepped out the door. Li Wang also followed suit. Nie Zhenbang couldn't clearly remember when the construction of Nan'e Airport began, when the project officially kicked off, and when it was completed. As for when the Nan'e Municipal Committee started toying with the idea and began preparations for it, Nie Zhenbang was even more clueless. However, Nie Zhenbang did distinctly remember a news segment from either 1993 or thereabouts, broadcast on CCTV's evening news. It mentioned that within 2 years of starting operations, Nan'e Airport quickly developed into yet another international airport within the country. Inferring from this information, it should have been around 1990 or 1991 when Nan'e Airport officially started operations. Even with Nan'e's fast-paced development, the actual construction probably took place between 1988 and 1990. Given that timeline, it made sense for the Nan'e Municipal Committee and government to start project planning now, prepare the necessary documentation, and then submit it to the Yudong Provincial Planning Committee and the Yudong Provincial Aviation Administration. Following this, they would report to the National Planning Committee and the National Aviation Administration for flight routing. This was indeed the right time. Moreover, based on the aforementioned information, the initial scale of Nan'e Airport was only set to serve domestic routes. This brought Nie Zhenbang a large leeway for possible action. Despite many airports, over 70% nationwide, reportedly running at a loss in later times, Nan'e Airport stands as an international air transit hub in the Asia-Pacific region. Investing in this project certainly wouldn't lead to sizable losses. Moreover, commercial real estate around the airport could provide Nie Zhenbang with an excellent opportunity to recoup his investment costs. Most importantly, this presents a great opportunity to boost Nie Guowei's prestige and political achievements within the Nan'e Municipal Committee. In regards to political achievements, Nie Zhenbang had a basic and straightforward view: there were no issues as long as money could solve the problem. Seeing Nie Zhenbang lost in thought, Yi Shushan came over, waved her hand in front of his eyes, and when she got no response, She patted Zhenbang's shoulder and said, "Zhenbang, let's have dinner." Even though Nie Guowei wasn't around, the meal was still enjoyed heartily. Looking at the affectionate relationship between Nie Ziyu and Nie Zhenbang, Yi Shushan was pleased. At this point, Nie Zhenbang felt like he was truly part of this small family. It was 10 o'clock at night, and Nie Ziyu had already gone to bed. Yi Shushan too had retired to her room. As Nie Guowei opened the door, he turned to his secretary, Li Wang, and said softly, "Li, you go and rest. Come pick me up at 7:30 tomorrow morning. We'll go check on things over at Anbeo's." Nie Zhenbang gently closed the front door. The light next to the door was left on, dimly illuminating the entire living room. At that moment, Nie Zhenbang emerged from his bedroom. Upon seeing Nie Zhenbang fully dressed, Nie Guowei was momentarily taken aback before breaking into a smile. "Zhenbang, you're still awake. Can't sleep in a new place." Without Yi Shushan present, Nie Guowei's tone was noticeably softer. Even though Yi Shushan did not mind, there were times when Nie Guowei made an effort to be more considerate. Looking at Nie Guowei, Nie Zhenbang assumed a serious expression and asked, "Father, do you have some time? Let's talk in the study. There's something I'd like to discuss with you." Such formality, such a grave tone, it was unlike Nie Zhenbang. It left Nie Guowei momentarily speechless, before solemnly nodding, "All right." Both father and son walked into the study next door. Nie Zhenbang carefully closed the door behind him. Staring at Nie Guowei seated on the study's sofa, after a prolonged silence, Nie Zhenbang spoke slowly, "Father, at this time, my mother has already left us. Yet, she never harbored any resentment towards you when she left. She never once blamed you for leaving her or forgetting about her. Instead, she told me that you are a good man. A man worth loving for a lifetime. I want to ask you, did you ever love my mother in this life?" This topic was a heavy burden. As Nie Zhenbang asked his question, Nie Guowei seemed to be transported back in time, a distant look in his eyes. Looking at Nie Zhenbang, Nie Guowei slowly responded, "Why would you ask such a thing? Zhenbang, is it because your aunt?" Nie Zhenbang shook his head, whispering, "It has nothing to do with Mom. Honestly, the name, Mom, suits her perfectly. I recognize her as my mother. I merely wanted to ask, for my mother's sake. Is the man she loved so deeply worth her love?" Actually, there was a deeper reason for Nie Zhenbang's actions. Nie Guowei's abilities and qualifications certainly had their limits. Even with Nie Zhenbang's support in this life, reaching the sub-national level would already be a remarkable feat. However, forcing someone who originally only reached deputy ministry level onto a sub-national position would consume an immeasurable amount of resources, connections and money. At this point, Nie Zhenbang was just making a final evaluation of his decision. "Zhenbang, since you asked, I'll tell you," Nie Guowei said, entering a reminiscent state. "Your mother and I met when we were sent to work in the rural commune of Yanbei. Back then, your mother was the renowned beauty of the commune. Our romance was simple. At that time, I was rebellious. Once, your mother fell ill, and I carried her 10 miles to the hospital. This was how our relationship started. After that, we became intimate. Initially, I thought I'd settle down in Yanbei. However, your grandfather interfered and transferred me directly to the military. During the new year, your mother returned home to visit her family and we didn't get a chance to say goodbye. I left her a note, promising to return in a year. But when that time came around, your grandfather was exiled. Not until 3 years later, when I was discharged from the military and returned to Yanbei, was I informed that your mother had left. Nobody knew where she'd gone, and I couldn't find any leads." For the first time, Nie Guowei's pain was laid bare. Looking at Nie Zhenbang, Nie Guowei's eyes were clear and intense. "Zhenbang, I know I've failed your mother. I've failed you. I've always blamed myself. Seeing you just made me feel even more guilty. But if you ask me whether I loved her, then I, Nie Guowei, can claim with a clear conscience that I did." At this point, Nie Zhenbang nodded. His maternal grandfather might have been an ordinary civilian, but Nie Zhenbang was well aware of his influence. As a well-known master of shape-intent fist in Yanbei, during the war he had made numerous military connections. After learning about his daughter's pregnancy, he used these connections to bring my mother back to Tang City. It was only natural that when Nie Guowei came to look for her, he could find no trace of her. At this moment, Nie Zhenbang seemed to have finally let go of a burden. He looked at Nie Guowei and asked, "Father, were you discussing the construction of the airport in Nan'e today?" Nie Guowei didn't think much of the question and casually replied, "Right. As Nan'e develops, it's necessary to build an airport. Recently, the municipal committee and the municipal government have been working on this. Numerous meetings have been held." At this, Nie Guowei paused, and turned the question around. "Zhenbang, why do you ask?" Nie Zhenbang broke into a grin. "Father, of course, the airport needs to be built. I'm guessing you're considering a regional airport. I think it's not necessary to be so conservative. The chief of Nanshuan once said that we need to take broader steps in reform. Considering the development prospects and pace of Nan'e, I suggest we go all in and start building an international airport directly." Chapter 74. Come to me if you're short of money. An international airport. Upon hearing this, Nie Guowei was taken aback. Although most of the initiatives his son had undertaken since joining the Nie family had surprised him, this idea genuinely took him aback. The entire Nan'e Municipal Committee currently held diverging views on the construction of an airport. After all, Yuezhou Airport was a major international hub, and was second only to Jingcheng City Airport and Hucheng Airport within the country. Nan'e was not too distant from Yuezhou. Along with the Hong Kong and Macau airports across the river, the issue of duplicative construction and resource waste had been raised earlier in the day. At this point, even the basic issue of whether to build an airport was unresolved, but his son was suggesting they jump straight to building an international one. After pondering for a moment, Nie Guowei turned to Nie Zhenbang, an international airport. It's not like a regional airport. An international airport would require a runway large enough for big planes to land and take off, hangars for the planes, and also separate terminals for domestic and international flights. The investment needed is far more significant than for a domestic airport. Is this even necessary? Nie Zhenbang laughed. It was likely that the Nan'e Municipal Committee had had the same concerns in his previous life, hence why they hadn't jumped straight to establishing an international airport. However, having lived through it once, he had a keen understanding of Nan'e's future development. In the future, Nan'e established an international airport and, within just a few years, became the fourth largest international airport in the country. This potential was significant. Moreover, in the future, the entire Pearl Delta region had a considerable number of airports. Yui and Nan'e, combined with Hong Kong and Macau across the shore, had 4 international airports clustered in a small area. That was real resource waste. Nie Zhenbang laughed and said, "Dad, I think you're just not daring enough, and too conservative about Nan'e's development. At present, Nan'e's industrial, economic, and commercial development is advancing at a rate of over 20% annually. I'm confident that within 5 years, Nan'e will be an international metropolis. Such a city needs an international airport. Rather than expanding an airport due to future growth, we should create it right now. Even though it might be challenging now, the future costs associated with land appreciation and expansion will be significant." Nie Guowei considered this for a moment. Ever since his appointment to a local position, compared to his old position in Jingcheng, the level of political strife was child's play. Having matured politically after months in the role, he paused and then shook his head. "All you're offering is speculation. It's too subjective and doesn't convince me. Even right now, funding for the current plan is limited. Both Secretary Li and I will have to go to Jingcheng and the province to do some wrangling. If we're to get an international airport off the ground, how we will fund it is yet another issue. I think it's best to take things one step at a time." Nie Zhenbang laughed. "Dad, as for the funding, if you guys don't have it, I do. I can invest to fill the leftover gap. Nan'e City can hold 51% of the shares, and we, Walmart Holdings, 49%. After deducting our investment, the remaining capital gap can be filled by us. We can repay it with airport profits. This won't impact the Nan'e City government in any way." At this, Nie Guowei looked at Nie Zhenbang. "This has never been done before. The airport is a crucial strategic resource for the country. Would the policy even permit it? Let's drop this subject. However, Zhenbang, your suggestion of an international airport is something I can bring up with Secretary Li, but I can't guarantee his reaction." Stunned for a moment, Nie Zhenbang then laughed. He'd been so excited that he'd blurted out the cooperation approach. Private capital hadn't been involved in airfield construction until the 21st century. It wasn't just the Nie Municipal Committee that would balk right now, but even Shui Ligang of Yudong Provincial Committee wouldn't dare to do this. Only the central government could authorize it. It seemed he would need to return to Jingcheng and seek help from the elder or elder Yang. However, if he could persuade the Nie Municipal Committee to launch the International Airport project, even if he didn't take a share, it would still be worth it. After all, his father was serving here, and his name would surely feature on the list of contributors. Thinking of this, Nie Zhenbang promptly replied, "Fine, if Secretary Cai Jin agrees. I don't mind going to the Nie Municipal Committee to explain to the leaders why we should implement an international airport. I believe I can convince the leadership of the Nie Municipal Committee." Looking at Nie Zhenbang's confident and domineering expression, Nie Guowei also felt very comforted and chuckled. Compared to his son, he felt like he was lacking a lot. At least in terms of courage and spirit, he was much less. Nie Guowei also started laughing, feeling very relaxed. I think in our family, you are the most like your grandfather." Nie Municipal Committee Office Building. At this moment, in the secretary's office located on the 7th floor. On the Huasha officialdom, there are some rituals. Businessmen like the number 8. But in the officialdom, many leaders like 7, as the saying goes, 7 up 8 down, which is a symbol of good luck. Nie Guowei's office and the office of Nie Municipal Committee Secretary Li Qianjun were not far apart. The next morning, just shortly after starting work, Nie Guowei entered Li Qianjun's office. At this moment, upon seeing Nie Guowei, Li Qianjun's secretary, Ma Jun, also stood up, very respectfully and warmly said, "Secretary Nie, you're here. Are you looking for the secretary? Please come in." In officialdom, deputies are generally referred to by their surname. But the chief secretary is directly referred to by the position to distinguish between the chief and the deputy. Seeing Nie Guowei coming in, Li Qianjun, who was sitting at the office desk, also stood up. With similar backgrounds and both part of the reformist system, the relationship between the two was very good. Li Qianjun had already stood up and smiled. "Secretary Guowei is here so early. I heard that your son is here. He even called you over yesterday. I feel somewhat embarrassed." Nie Guowei also laughed. "Secretary Li, you're too kind. We, as party cadres, have to set a good example. It's you, Secretary Li, who came to Nie alone. You're truly the model I learned from." Li Qianjun also laughed, then turned serious. "Secretary Guowei, did you need something from me?" Upon hearing this, Nie Guowei also nodded. "Secretary Li, indeed there is a matter I would like to report to you. Yesterday evening, as soon as I got home, my boy started talking to me about our Nie airport project. He proposed some immature ideas. But when I thought about it, they sort of made sense, hence I came over today to discuss it with you." Having said that, Nie Guowei laid out Nie Zhenbang's thoughts on the construction of the Nie airport. Hearing about the international airport, Li Qianjun's face changed, a gleam in his eyes. But after hearing Nie Zhenbang's idea of co-investing with Nie City, Li Qianjun shook his head. After Nie Guowei finished explaining, Li Qianjun pondered for a moment, then voiced his opinion. "Secretary Guowei, I am really envious of you. Zhenbang is indeed exceptional. The idea of an international airport is very innovative and bold. The spirit shown by the young man is greater than us old bones. However, after careful consideration, Zhenbang's idea indeed has high feasibility. But as for the joint venture, I think it's best not to mention it." After a pause, Li Qianjun continued, "So, Secretary Guowei, I think we can certainly call a meeting of the municipal committee to let Zhenbang explain it to us in detail. What do you think?" Chapter 75, Making a Report to the Municipal Committee. This, Secretary Li, is inviting the boy to present to the municipal committee. This, isn't it a bit too theatrical? If word gets out, it might undermine your authority. Nie Guowei did not expect Li Qianjun to have such remarkable courage. A young man, barely 17 or 18, is involved in the research of major projects in Nie. Even more shockingly, he could possibly influence the decisions of the Nie Municipal Committee. If this gets out, Li Qianjun will have to take responsibility. At this moment, however, Li Qianjun just laughed heartily. Looking at Nie Guowei, he said, Guowei, we've become friends now. So let me give you a piece of harsh advice. In your life, you've always been too cautious. So what if we have to take responsibility? What is there to be afraid of? I don't believe that the provincial government and the central government would dismiss me for this. When he spoke these words, Li Qianjun naturally exuded his own air of dominance and confidence. As the secretary of the Nan'e Municipal Committee and a standing member of the provincial committee, his rank was comparable to that of a deputy minister. This wasn't something Yudong province could decide on its own. Any transfer or dismissal involving Li Qianjun would have to go through the Central Organization Department. Then, Li Qianjun decisively declared, "This is settled. We're going to do it as I proposed. Comrade Guowei, when you get back, make sure to talk to Zhenbang about it. The meeting will be set for 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, in the small meeting room." At 2:50 in the afternoon the next day, Nie Zhenbang had already arrived at the office building of the Nan'e Municipal Committee. Next to the small meeting room on the top floor is a rest room. Here, leaders of the standing committee of the municipal committee usually rest during meetings. At this moment, all the leaders of the standing committee had arrived at the meeting room one after another. As the deputy secretary of the municipal committee, Nie Guowei had also taken his seat. But Nie Zhenbang was in the rest room, tightly clutching a stack of documents, while carefully recalling some information in his mind. At this moment, Nie Zhenbang was somewhat nervous. He had met many provincial and national leaders in his life, and even had opportunities for direct interactions. However, in those occasions, he was always treated merely as a junior. This time, he was technically making his official debut. Although Nie Zhenbang had clear ambitions to pursue a political career, he had no prior experience. His success in this life was thanks to his foresight, but he had no experience or reference for navigating the system. This would be a true test of his abilities. Take a deep breath. Calm down. It's not a big deal, just think of it as a rehearsal before entering the political realm, Nie Zhenbang muttered to himself. Approaching 3 o'clock, the door of the rest room opened. A middle-aged man walked in with a smile. Looking at Nie Zhenbang, he was courteous and kind, smiling and saying, "Zhenbang, I've heard a lot about you. Are you nervous?" Nie Zhenbang had met Li Qianjun before, so he stood up and smiled, "Hello. Uncle Li, I'm a little nervous, but I believe I can persuade everyone." Li Qianjun laughed at this, patting Nie Zhenbang's shoulder approvingly and nodded, "Good, not bad. You have the vigor of the young. Great figures have said that the world belongs to you, as well as us, but at the end of the day, it is still yours. You are like the sun at 8 or 9 in the morning. What we need is this vibrant feeling, this confidence. Zhenbang, you're doing very well, much better than my own son." With this, Li Qianjun turned to the middle-aged man next to him and laughed. "Old Qi, Cao Cao once said, I wish my son could be like Sun Quan. Now, I want to borrow his words. I wish my son could be like Nie Zhenbang." Old Qi, now the deputy secretary of the Nan'e Municipal Committee and the mayor of Nan'e City, is Qi Yucheng. Mayor Qi wears a pair of glasses, which gives him the demeanor of a scholar-type mayor. In the past, Mayor Qi was the first mayor in the country to have a master's degree. He is indeed a notable figure. At this moment, Mayor Qi also chuckled and said, "Zhenbang, Secretary Li rarely praises people. That's good. You're a talented young man, keep up the good work." Li Qianjun also laughed and said, "I think it's about time, let's go together." Li Qianjun was leading the way, and at this moment, Mayor Qi also kept half a step behind, with Nie Zhenbang trailing behind. Now, Nie Zhenbang was somewhat amazed. Everyone said Mayor Qi was a scholar-type mayor. It seemed, it wasn't entirely true. At this moment, in terms of attention to such details, Mayor Qi vividly taught Nie Zhenbang a lesson. The three of them walked into the meeting room at the same time. At this moment, everyone in the room turned to look at them. After Li Qianjun reached his seat and sat down, he introduced with a smile, "Comrades, the main character of this meeting isn't me, but this young comrade here. Nie Zhenbang has some distinct ideas about the issue at Nan'e Airport. After consulting with Mayor Qi and Deputy Secretary Nie, I felt it was very necessary to have Comrade Zhenbang share his analysis on the future planning of aviation and Nan'e's prospects. As soon as he finished speaking, all the standing committee members below started whispering. Li Qianjin's move this time was too radical. How much could this kid know? Beside them, Wang, a member of the Standing Committee of the Nan'e Municipal Committee, and the Minister of the United Front Work Department of the Municipal Party Committee, snorted coldly and mocked, "Secretary Li, this isn't like visiting someone with gifts during a festival. This concerns Nan'e's future development. Don't you find it rather absurd to have a child teaching us a lesson?" "Exactly, this boy looks to be only 20 years old. He's even younger than my son. My son, who's hardly ever at home. Let alone anything else. What does this little boy know?" Another person echoed. The speaker was the Political and Legal Affairs Committee Secretary of Nan'e City. On such occasions, it's not that each one of the standing committee members would be afraid of Li Qianjin. After all, they all have the right to speak. If it were a normal meeting, these people certainly wouldn't act like this. However, Li Qianjin brought a young man with him, so those who oppose him didn't have so much fear. Beside them, Mayor Qi coughed lightly and slowly said, "Comrades, please calm down. Initially, I was also skeptical about Secretary Li's suggestion. But after doing some research, Comrade Nie Zhenbang is not an ordinary man. He is indeed the younger generation here. Zhenbang is the son of Comrade Nie Guowei. He comes from a well-educated family and is a high-achieving student from Jingcheng University. I asked my teacher, Professor Wang, the secretary of Jingcheng University's party committee. To my surprise, my teacher highly praised Zhenbang, calling him a rare genius of Huaxia that only comes along once in a century. I believe my teacher's character is trustworthy. Even if it's a child, if he can get such high praise from my teacher, he must be extraordinary." At this moment, Minister Wang and Secretary Jia both fell silent. Their faces were slightly embarrassed since they indeed behaved a bit disrespectfully by assessing the child of Nie Guowei in front of him. At this time, Li Qianjin waved to Nie Zhenbang and signaled, "Zhenbang, you may begin." Nie Zhenbang nodded and took a deep breath. He solemnly started, "Respected seniors and leaders. I am very grateful to the Nan'e Municipal Committee and City Government, and to all the leaders for giving me this opportunity. Zhenbang is still learning, so I'll put forward my ideas as a starting point for further discussion. If there are any inappropriate points, we can communicate further." At that, Nie Zhenbang brought out a map of the Pearl Triangle area and hung it on the wall. He then said, "Everyone knows what this map represents. Please have a look. At present, in the area we are currently developing, in the vicinity of Nan'e City, including Dongguan City, as well as several other surrounding cities, aviation is a blank spot." Nie Zhenbang's thoughts flowed out like a spring, uninterrupted. From the standpoint of the region's location advantage, he discussed the industry trends in the domestic and Yudong aviation sector, and analyzed the international aviation industry trends. He talked extensively and learnedly. In the end, Nie Zhenbang concluded, "Respected leaders, I believe that it is absolutely necessary for Nan'e to construct a regional airport. Leaning on sea transportation, along with the current highway and railway transportations, the construction of an airport will give Nan'e another pair of wings for development, forming three-dimensional advantages in sea, land and air transportation. Moreover, constructing an international airport directly will increase Nan'e's international reputation, serving as a business card for national reform and opening up. If Nan'e can immediately initiate the construction of an international airport, it will enhance our country's influence. Thank you, everyone." As Nie Zhenbang finished speaking, Secretary Jia next to him snorted coldly and disdainfully said, "Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. A teenager without his hair grown out full, daring to talk big." With the fall of his words, the venue fell silent. As a bureau-level leading cadre, although he came from a military background and was a bit crude, his disrespectful words in such a setting seemed rather inappropriate. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 76, Nie Guowei's Eruption. Smack. In the meeting room, a sudden loud sound rang out, attracting everyone's gaze toward Nie Guowei. At this moment, Nie Guowei had already slammed his pen and notebook down on the table. The Parker pen was now in pieces from the force. Nie Zhenbang was smirking a little. Secretary Jia's words earlier had genuinely taken Nie Zhenbang by surprise. However, it was unexpected that the usually benevolent old man would explode in anger now. Nie Zhenbang was satisfied. At this moment, for the first time, Nie Zhenbang felt a sense of care and warmth from Nie Guowei. Even though at this moment, Nie Zhenbang's wings had gradually become fuller. Nevertheless, Nie Zhenbang did not mind receiving attentions from others. At this moment, Nie Guowei stood up and said, "Secretary Jia, don't you think that you went a bit too far with your remarks? Outrageous. Utter nonsense. I'd like to hear what you believe is different. Are you implying your words aren't nonsense?" A young man, who has been invited by Secretary Li, Mayor Qi, and me, just to express his own viewpoint. He's not participating in our decision-making and discussion of Nan'e City's municipal government. What's there that makes you so heartbroken? Secretary Jia was rendered speechless. Nie Guowei's status is similar to his, just ranking higher. Secretary Jia didn't take this too seriously, sat down, snorted and said, "Absurd. Since when did a dignified state agency require a child to lecture them? I am a rough man. I don't know about economics or development. I feel building a branch airport itself is a high-risk matter. And yet you're talking about setting up an international airport. Where will the flights be routed to? United States." Li Qianjun looked serious too. After all, Nie Zhenbang was his invite. But Secretary Jia's behavior was a true slight toward him. Li Qianjun immediately retorted, "Regardless, it's still currently under discussion. As a new pathway for all Nan'e citizens, I believe not only do we have the right to discuss, so does every citizen of Nan'e." That was typical Li Qianjun. The moment he opened his mouth, he put the hat on Secretary Jia. In this era, there was no such thing as listening to public opinion. Li Qianjun's idea was indeed ahead of its time. Mayor Qi also stated calmly, "Regardless, it's inappropriate for you to use such a tone and attitude, considering your position as a secretary of the Political and Legal Affairs Commission, who is in charge of the city's political and legal work, and your status as an elder." At this point, Nie Guowei said in a grave tone, "Secretary Jia, as the saying goes, nepotism isn't a barrier when recommending a talent. I think my son Zhenbang's point is reasonable. Currently, domestic aviation in Huaxia is not advanced. Except for Jingcheng, Hucheng, and a few provincial capital cities that have international airports, all others are domestic branch airports. This situation will gradually change. After the launch of the Reform and Opening Up policy, since 1979, the Nanzun chief had designated this area, and in 8 years, Nan'e has developed from a fishing village to a metropolis. The speed of this transformation is astonishing. Upon hearing this, the expressions of the standing committee members started to change. Truly, Nie Guowei was correct. There were several members who had been here since those days, fully participating in Nan'e's construction. Even now, recalling Nan'e's rapid development, these members themselves found it hard to believe. Nie Guowei then continued, "I fully support the establishment of an airport in Nan'e. I think it's essential as this is the last thing needed to perfect Nan'e's transport system. Moreover, with the deepening of the Reform and Opening Up policy, I believe, as our national power increases, Huaxia's status in the world will also edge up. By then, international exchanges will be frequent. Instead of waiting for that time to make up for our deficiencies, why not take a step ahead?" Nie Guowei looked at Secretary Jia and sternly said, "My son's words are based on solid reasoning." Not only did he daringly speculate about Huaxia's future, but he also provided realistic data analysis. He accurately judged the current and future aviation development trends. I would like to ask Secretary Jia, where did this nonsense come from? My Nie family may not be good at, and may even despise playing power games. But we cannot be wantonly insulted. Today, if Secretary Jia can point out any nonsense in these analyses, I will consider it a lesson for my son. However, if Secretary Jia cannot provide an explanation, I ask that you apologize to my son in person." At this moment, Nie Zhenbang gave a thumbs up to Nie Guowei, praising the old man for a job well done. In front of all the standing committee members, with a seemingly pressure-free tone, he had managed to get Secretary Jia to apologize in front of everyone. This action practically toppled the reputation of Secretary Jia. Secretary Jia, at this moment, felt like he was in a predicament. In the history of the establishment of Nan'e City, it was unheard of for the secretary, the mayor, and a deputy secretary, to gang up against another standing committee member. Right now, Secretary Jia looks at Nie Zhenbang with resentment in his eyes. At this time, the other standing committee members wisely shut their mouths. They were all aware of Nie Guowei's background. The Nie family was a force to be reckoned with. Moreover, Nie Guowei had another identity: he was the son-in-law of the Yi family. In Yudong, the Yi family's words definitely carried more weight than the Nie family. Moreover, what Secretary Jia had done was indeed a little too much. No one else was to blame. As Li Qianjun had said, the young man hadn't even participated in the decision-making. Why did he have to jump out so eagerly, if only because he thought the young man would be easy to bully? But when he made the move, he found out he had bit more than he could chew. And now, he had lost face. He deserved it. Secretary Jia didn't understand anything really. If it was a matter of criminal investigation in public safety, having worked in the public safety sector for so many years, Secretary Jia might be able to provide some guidance. However, in terms of economics and development, Secretary Jia was a complete layman. After looking at Nie Guowei, who was glaring in anger right now, Secretary Jia hesitated for a long time before finally saying in a deep voice, "Anyway, I hold reservations on the construction of the airport project." Having said that, Secretary Jia gave Nie Zhenbang a glance, then opened his mouth, "I'm sorry." He then turned around and left. At this moment, anyone would find it hard to accept a dignified secretary of the Political and Legal Affairs Commission having to apologize to a young man, and in front of all the standing committee members of Nan'e City at that. If Secretary Jia could achieve this level of humility, he indeed showed he was a broad-minded man. Nie Zhenbang, however, still had a slight smile on his face, seemingly achieving a state of being pleased or displeased by nothing external. He bowed slightly and said, "Gentlemen, if there is nothing else, I will excuse myself." Once Nie Zhenbang had left, Li Qianjun also started speaking, "All right, comrades. Since Secretary Jia has other things to do, let's consider him on sick leave. He made his stance clear just now. Rather than delaying, it's better to carry out things early on. We are currently being watched by the whole country. Since the leaders have put us at the forefront, we should act sincerely and implement the spirit of the superiors' instructions. Now, I suggest we proceed to the voting process. Those in favor of immediately starting on the international airport, please raise your hands." After saying this, Li Qianjun raised his hand first, followed by Mayor Qi. Nie Guowei also raised his hand. At this moment, with the three top leaders of the city's standing committee raising their hands, other members, such as the Director of Propaganda and the Director of Organization, both known as Li Qianjun's trusted followers, of course, provided their unstinting support. On the city government's side, both the executive deputy mayor and member deputy mayor also raised their hands. Seeing this, a smile emerged on Li Qianjun's face. With the exception of Minister Wang from the United Front Work Department opposing, the military subdivision commander abstaining, and Secretary Jia expressing reservations, the plan was unanimously passed. Li Qianjun stood up, seemingly quite satisfied with his influence on the standing committee, and immediately said, "Since we've decided, then old Qi, the city government should immediately set up an airport project leadership group, with you personally serving as the team leader. Deputy Mayor Guo and Deputy Mayor Leng should serve as deputy team leaders. Immediately implement the spirit of this meeting. Prepare the necessary materials. Nie and I will immediately set off for Jingcheng." Chapter 77 Dynasty Club. Back home, Nie Zhenbang and Nie Guowei seemed very calm. As Nie Zhenbang got out of the car and walked into the living room, he murmured under his breath, "Dad, you looked very formidable today." Nie Guowei was taken aback before breaking into laughter and scolding, "You little brat, they were bullying you right under your nose. Could I just stand by and watch?" For once, the family had a pleasant dinner together. Nie Zhenbang put down his cutlery and said, "Dad, Mom, I'm catching a flight back to Jingcheng tomorrow." Upon hearing Nie Zhenbang's words, Nie Ziyu started to grumble, and Yi Shushan looked startled, saying to Nie Zhenbang, "Zhenbang, since you have nothing to do, it's better to stay here." Nie Zhenbang felt a headache coming on at Yi Shushan's pleading look, but time waits for no man. To become a superior person, one can't always rely on their ancestors' blessings. At this time of abundant opportunities everywhere, Nie Zhenbang didn't want to waste this precious chance. He then apologized, "Mom, I'm sorry. This time I came back with a bunch of stuff, and I made a bet with that ooze kid. If I don't go back, and the deadline passes, I guess I'll have to circle around the Forbidden City." Hearing Nie Zhenbang's explanation, Yi Shushan laughed and slightly admonished, "Why would you make such a bet with others? You should be careful." The next day, Nie Zhenbang departed early with Long, boarding a direct flight back to Jingcheng. This time, no one picked him up nor was anyone informed. His purpose in coming to Nan'e had initially been fulfilled. At this moment, Nie Zhenbang had one last procedure to complete. Once he had confirmed it with either Elder Nie or Elder Yang, his trip would be considered satisfying. Thus, Nie Zhenbang didn't inform anyone. If people like Yang and Bang knew he was back, he would probably not be at leisure. Within the Forbidden City, in Elder Nie's courtyard, Nie Zhenbang had laid out the teaware under a tree. The exquisite Mingqin Longjing tea was emitting waves of fragrant aroma. Around 11:50, the courtyard door was pushed open from the outside, and Elder Nie strode in energetically. Seeing Nie Zhenbang, Elder Nie was taken aback, and then said, "Didn't you say you were going to Nan'e? How come you're back so soon?" At the moment, Nie Zhenbang brought over a wicker chair, smiling and saying, "Grandfather, please sit down." If Elder Nie had no external activities or military inspections, he would usually come home to eat at this time every day. It's almost a habit. Even if Elder Nie didn't want to return, the healthcare doctor nearby would always remind and urge him. In the eyes of people with Elder Nie's status, the healthcare doctor is actually the most feared. Gazing at the tea leaves on the table, Elder Nie sat down, waved his hand to dismiss the guards and healthcare doctor, and then chuckled, "Top-notch Longjing tea and such enthusiasm, Zhenbang, you must have something in mind. Spill it. What's the matter?" Looking at Elder Nie, Nie Zhenbang laughed and said, "Grandfather, I guess, my father will also be back in a few days. This time, the Nan'e Municipal Committee has decided to go ahead with the airport project. At my suggestion, the Nan'e Municipal Committee decided to aim for an international airport all at once. As a result, the funding gap has increased significantly. I was wondering, if possible, I would like to invest in the Nan'e airport in the name of Walmart's holding. What do you think?" Elder Nie was taken aback. He generally refrained from meddling in economic matters as a matter of principle. He always believed in the principle, professionals lead the professionals, and economic construction wasn't his forte. After some time, Elder Nie nodded, "I'll keep this in mind. In the afternoon, I'll find some time to consult the Nanzun chief about it." After saying this, the old man looked at Nie Zhenbang and said, "Zhenbang, I don't know what your thoughts are. If your ambition lies in the business field, I won't say much. However, I heard you mention in the past that you would prefer a career in civil service in the future. If that's the case, I think there's no need for you to concern yourself with those betting commitments." Here, the old man paused for a moment, and then said, "Do you know why I'm still in my position? Because in my lifetime, I have served as a political commissar all along, from the division level to the field army, and finally to the military region. My connections now can be said to span across the entirety of Huaxia. Zhenbang, you're a smart man. I don't want to say too much, but I think you only have 2 years until graduation. It's time for you to start planning for the future. Connections. Preparation." Nie Zhenbang watched the old man's receding figure as he entered the room, lost in thought. What did the old man's words mean? Was he saying that it was time to start preparing now? At this moment, Nie Zhenbang also walked into the room from outside. Seeing Nie Zhenbang, Nie Zhenbang was curious and asked, "Big brother, why are you home so early today?" At this moment, Nie Zhenbang's attitude towards Nie Zhenbang had noticeably changed. Ever since the Nie family had shifted its faction, Nie Zhenbang had felt the unmistakable change, and life now felt much more relaxed than before. Furthermore, with the publication of his scholarly article, Nie Zhenbang's future knew no bounds. Now, he smiled and said, "Zhenbang, you're back. I heard from people in the circle that you went to the Soviet Union. How was the trip? Did everything go smoothly?" At this time, no one in the Nie family, apart from the old man, knew Nie Zhenbang's real thoughts. Nie Zhenbang also assumed that Nie Zhenbang had chosen the path of business, which would mean no conflict of interest amongst them. After all, it is absolutely impossible for two high-level individuals to emerge from the same generation in a family. Even if both individuals are outstanding, only one can be chosen, as other families would not tolerate a single family's dominance. This is the nature of high-level political maneuvering. Hearing Nie Zhenbang's words, Nie Zhenbang felt a sudden clarity in his mind, as if everything made sense all at once. The circle, connections, preparation, when connected, it implies that the old man was hinting at him that it's time to start planning for the future. At this time, regardless of their stubbornness, these men of the circle would certainly choose one path for the future, either business, politics, or the military. These were the only three options. Despite the existence of this circle in Jingcheng, it wasn't an especially reliable connection. This was why the circle of Nie Zhenbang's generation had always had a loose connection. The word, club, suddenly came to mind. In the future, the famous Luoyang Club of Jingcheng would be considered a top-tier club in the city. With high membership fees and a gathering of political and business talents, such private clubs, while serving as a communication hub, could play a significant role. At this time, there weren't any such clubs in Jingcheng. If he were to establish the first such club in the country, targeting political elites and the privileged youth of not only Jingcheng but also all provinces and cities, it would help him build an extensive network. Thinking of this, Nie Zhenbang began to feel excited. After quickly clearing the table, seeing that dinner was ready, Nie Zhenbang was so excited that he didn't even bother to eat. He rushed out and immediately said to Long, let's go. Drive me to the Walmart. Half an hour later, Nie Zhenbang rushed into the Walmart headquarters, marched straight into Yang Onbong's office. Yang Onbong was just about to finish work for dinner. Seeing Nie Zhenbang, he was about to speak. But Nie Zhenbang preempted him, saying, "Second brother, how much funds do we have left in the account? Prepare 20 million for me. I want to start a club, the Dynasty Club." Chapter 78, Meeting Dongwan again. What kind of club? What does a club do? Is it similar to the membership system of our supermarket? At this moment, Yang Onbong was somewhat puzzled. He asked question after question. Even though Yang Onbong also comes from a well-connected family, in this era, he is considered knowledgeable. However, he still didn't understand much about those private member clubs in foreign countries. As soon as Nie Zhenbang shook his head, Yang Onbong suddenly realized, I get it. Zhenbang, your interests are really too diverse. Managing a football club. But at this time, is there anyone in China competing with you in this? At this moment, with the deepening of the reform and opening up, Europe's top football leagues were gradually becoming known to the Chinese people. Even though Yang Onbong didn't pay much attention, he knew quite some top European clubs. Nie Zhenbang felt like collapsing right now. He made a pause gesture and said, hold on. And bang, I find you being as impatient as my sister. Are you influenced by her? His words made Yang Onbong snort disdainfully. He smirked and said, how could she influence me? It's more like I'm influencing her. Looking at these two, Nie Zhenbang laughed softly. They were both competitive. It was surprising that they had come together of their own accord and collaborated in the long run despite their tough personality. He was not sure if this was a good thing or not. Shaking his head, Nie Zhenbang explained, and bang, the club I'm talking about is not what you think. It's more like the circle we are interacting with right now. Clubs in foreign countries have a long history. What I mean is to choose a location in Jingcheng, buy it, then renovate it and create a private club with a bar, dance floor, Western restaurant, and even various leisure and entertainment activities. But it's not open to the public, only for the club's members. In other words, we don't have to go anywhere else for gatherings in the future. We can just do it at the private club. Here, it is a private gathering place and a symbol of nobility. Our target customers are only elite people like us and officials from all over the country. What do you think? Is it feasible? Yang Onbong was stunned for a moment. After regaining his senses, he even walked over to Nie Zhenbang. Smiling jokingly he said, Zhenbang, how does your mind work? This is a good way to gather connections. Then I should make one too, aiming at business elites both at home and abroad. Since you are naming yours Dynasty Club, I will call mine the Tang Dynasty Club. Yang Onbong's thinking was incredibly agile. He quickly grasped the crux of the matter. Nie Zhenbang nodded with a smile, adding, okay, you can name it whatever you want. You can call it Great Han, Great Qin, or Great Zonghua, whatever you like. But I'm leaving the location hunting for the club to you. My only requirement is that the property has to be independent, without any other companies or entities in it. Once you find a place, give me a call. I'll take my leave now. With the ongoing expansion under Walmart's control, Huang Guangyu, a well-known tycoon, has been supported by Walmart's vast capital and connections in this life. Gome electrical appliances chain stores have been quickly set up in major cities across the country. The pace of development has far exceeded expectations. Now, the cash flow of Gome is almost comparable to that of Walmart supermarket. Naturally, under the control of Walmart, Yang Anbang has also assembled a team of talents. At this time, many things no longer required him to take personal action as before. Now, if there's anything requiring a location, someone will handle it. Walking out of the doors of Walmart building and strolling on the streets of Jingcheng, Nie Zhenbang couldn't help but ponder about the arms deal. At this point, there were not so many small-scale local wars in the world anymore. If it was the 1990s, the Iraq War, it could have been a different story. Taking the opportunity to sell some Katyusha or SAM-16 portable missiles to Saddam would have been a good move. At this time, the Iran-Iraq War was also coming to an end. At Iraq's request, the United Nations had already intervened in the investigation. Also, after his agreement with Oh Jung, his initial idea to sell products through Washa Arms Trading Company was no longer workable. Since he had to sell them himself, it appears that he will have to personally visit Iran and Iraq now. Just as he was about to turn this corner, he suddenly bumped into someone in front of him, followed by a cry of pain. Looking up, he saw a woman already sitting on the ground. Nie Zhenbang had practiced martial arts from a young age, which made his body control outstanding. Although he was distracted, his natural reflexes kicked in. Under inadvertent collisions, his body was designed to respond quickly. Seeing the girl fall, Nie Zhenbang rushed to her aid, apologizing, I'm sorry. I was lost in thought and didn't pay attention. I hope I didn't hurt you. No sooner had the words left his lips than the woman on the ground looked up. Stunned, Nie Zhenbang recognized her, it was Dong Wan. At this moment, Dong Wan maintained her usual icy demeanor. Her face was as unperturbed as a calm old well, and upon seeing Nie Zhenbang, she recognized him as the first man who did not mince words around her. Dong Wan was dressed in white jeans and a black batwing top. The V neckline was somewhat low, revealing her fair skin which added a touch of allure to her look. Looking at the outstretched hand of Nie Zhenbang, Dong Wan didn't even give it a glance. She stood up on her own and said coldly, I'm fine. But, Nie Zhenbang, please watch where you are going next time. At this point, a tinge of unspoken sadness could be detected in her eyes, blending with her usual cold beauty. Such an expression made Nie Zhenbang slightly intoxicated. Such a woman, like a fairy untouched by the mundane world, was the reason why Nie Zhenbang did not hold back in front of Dong Wan. He was well aware of his own status, he was just an ordinary person. He never even dreamed of winning over a fairy-like woman. The philosophy of being as hard as a rock when one has no desires perfectly defines Nie Zhenbang's mindset. Since he had no intentions with her, he wouldn't be affected. At this moment, Dong Wan's face, beaming with its usual cold beauty and a tinge of sadness, exuded a certain aura as if a fairy had descended. Her demeanor evoked a sense of sorrow. Impulsively, Nie Zhenbang asked, Dong Wan, do you have something on your mind? This question took Dong Wan by surprise. She had always hidden her feelings well, so much so that nobody at school had ever noticed. How on earth could he have figured it out? Could it be that he truly understood her? At this time, romance novels started to gain popularity on the mainland. For someone of Dong Wan's status, getting hold of these books was not difficult. Like all girls her age, Dong Wan was also influenced by these stories and began to harbor dreams for her own love life. At this moment, Dong Wan felt somewhat different. Looking at Nie Zhenbang, she said softly, whether I'm sad or indifferent, what difference does it make? Everyone in this world has their share of troubles. Compared to others, I think I am quite fortunate. Indeed, she's a girl with a soft exterior but a strong heart. Nie Zhenbang was over 40 years of age, both physically and mentally. His youthful innocence had long faded away. Now, he was like a middle-aged man. Smiling, he said to Dong Wan, come with me. Whenever I feel down, I do something. It works quite well. Would you like to try? Saying this, Nie Zhenbang grabbed Dongwan's delicate hand and ran towards Walmart building. Chapter 79, Crazy Racing. He's holding my hand. This was Dongwan's first reaction, sensing the peculiar warmth emanating from Nie Zhenbang's hand, which caused her heart to involuntarily speed up. For the first time in her life, other than her elder family members and brother, she was physically in contact with a man. This made Dongwan's cheeks turn somewhat crimson. Luckily, at this moment, Nie Zhenbang hadn't noticed any of these reactions. This helped Dongwan escape from the potentially awkward situation. Down in the basement of the Walmart building, this was the underground parking lot of the entire Walmart Holdings company. In this era, unlike those of the future, at this moment, in the parking lot, other than a few luxury cars bought by Yang Onbong, there are a few company trucks and common cars like Santana parked in a corner. Most of the employees mainly commute by bicycles and motorcycles. In the deepest corner of the underground parking lot, an area was walled off with red bricks. Looking at Nie Zhenbang, Dongwan appeared somewhat bewildered. In this underground parking lot, outside of commuting hours, not even a soul could be seen. She thought, he wouldn't be planning to do something wrong, would he? If Nie Zhenbang knew Dongwan's thoughts, he would probably be infuriated. At this moment, Nie Zhenbang had just opened the garage door, revealing a brand new American-made Harley-Davidson Crown Prince motorcycle parked inside. The black metallic paint shimmered stunningly under the lighting. With a massive 1200cc displacement, it was powerful enough to rival any sports car in terms of speed. This is something Nie Zhenbang had Yang Onbong specially import from the United States. This motorcycle had been a dream of Nie Zhenbang's in his past life. But having brought it back, he had never used it. This was indeed an irony. Looking at the motorcycle, Nie Zhenbang was somewhat excited at the moment, carefully caressing it. Nie Zhenbang's focused attitude at this moment left Dongwan a little perplexed. This man was truly a mystery, appearing to know everything yet seeming to care about nothing. Could he actually have such focused moments? Nie Zhenbang then turned around, looking at Dongwan, and made an inviting gesture. He smiled and said, "Are you interested in going for a ride? Experience the thrill of surpassing all the vehicles on the road and savor the exhilarating speed that comes from deep within." Dongwan was taken aback, and before she could respond, Nie Zhenbang had already taken out two matching black helmets. Next to them was a set of original racing gear. After donning the gear quickly, Nie Zhenbang called out to the still dazed Dongwan. Seeing Dongwan lift her head, he immediately tossed her one of the helmets. He then straddled the motorcycle, started it up. The roaring sound of the engine echoed like a beast about to break free. Nie Zhenbang smiled and said, "Dongwan, give it a try. Feel the passion of speed. After experiencing this exhilaration, you might feel that things are not as bad as they seem." Perhaps the last statement struck a chord in Dongwan's heart. Dongwan quickly put on her helmet and positioned herself on the back seat. For such a Crown Prince model motorcycle, the height of the back seat is significantly higher than the front seat. The passenger on the back seat usually has to lean over to grip around the driver. After a while, Nie Zhenbang only felt a soft touch gently grasping his waist. Nie Zhenbang then said, "Dongwan, hold on tight." The motorcycle roared off. Nie Zhenbang's motorcycle driving skills, which were honed by talents like Long, were quite impressive. Although he hadn't driven much, his skills were quite impressive. Despite this being his first drive, after a short distance on the main street, Nie Zhenbang quickly grasped the performance of the motorcycle. Shifting another gear, accelerating, the tachometer's readings shot up. 40 miles, 50, 60, soon, within city limits, the speed had reached 80 miles per hour. As the wind whizzed by, Nie Zhenbang began screaming wildly in excitement. Even Dongwan was becoming influenced by Nie Zhenbang's enthusiasm. The traffic cops on the streets of Jingcheng watched as this motorcycle dared to speed so blatantly down the main road. They immediately took action. Soon, 4 or 5 police motorcycles were trailing Nie Zhenbang's vehicle. The officer on the leading motorcycle shouted, "Motorcycle numbered AT 45678, stop immediately for inspection. Stop immediately for inspection." At this moment, Dongwan was also leaning into Nie Zhenbang, compelled by the high-speed movement of the vehicle. Seeing the pursuing police cars, this well-behaved girl, who was never exposed to such spectacle, immediately whispered into Nie Zhenbang's ear, Nie Zhenbang, stop quickly. You've dragged the police into this. Nie Zhenbang laughed, Dongwan, don't you feel a burst of excitement right now? Let's be crazy for once and have some fun. Hold on tight, I'm going to speed up. At this moment, Nie Zhenbang didn't slow down, instead, he accelerated. All the motorcycles used by Jingcheng police were 250cc police models made by Suzuki from Japan. While they were faster than other vehicles, they were nothing compared to Nie Zhenbang's Harley. As Nie Zhenbang sped up, the Jingcheng police were left in the dust. The cops had no choice but to stop and radio for backup. Command Center. Command Center. A Crown Prince motorcycle with the license plate AT45678 is heading south out of the city toward Nanchang District. Please set up roadblocks along the way. With that report, the entire Jingcheng City Traffic Command Center sprang into action. At the city's fast-track highway exit leading to Nanchang District, 4 or 5 patrol cars had already set up roadblocks, temporarily controlling the traffic. The road was covered in spike strips, police lights flashing in anticipation. Their blatant defiance of the law in broad daylight was a direct challenge to the Jingcheng traffic police. At that moment, everyone was determined to capture this reckless driver and penalize him for violating public security management regulations. Seeing the roadblocks ahead, with all the lanes except the middle one blocked, forcing him to slow down, Nie Zhenbang couldn't help but smile. The wild part of him again took over. He turned to Dongwan, who was clinging tightly to him. Dongwan, hold on tight, we're going to break through the blockade. At the urging of the traffic police, Nie Zhenbang reduced his speed. It seemed as if he was obeying the police instructions, slowly navigating the roadblock. At that moment, the waiting officers started to gather around. Suddenly, Nie Zhenbang stepped hard on the accelerator. The motorcycle roared as it shot out again. Beyond the roadblock was the open road outside the city. Nie Zhenbang immediately pulled up to speeds over 80 miles per hour, quickly exceeding 130 miles per hour, leaving the unprepared police far behind. About a mile or two out of the city, Nie Zhenbang took a left turn onto a side road. After making a complete round of Jingcheng, he was heading toward Haituo Mountain in the north. An hour later, the vehicle parked at the foot of the mountain. The high-speed ride had ignited Dongwan's spirit, her cheeks flushed with excitement. Taking off her helmet, her long hair flowed. At that moment, Dongwan was unspeakably charming. Looking at the mountains, she took the initiative. Nie Zhenbang, feel like climbing a mountain. Meanwhile, the entire city was in an uproar over the daring street racer. In Chishan, where the elderly Dong was recuperating, he sat leisurely on a recliner. A plainclothes guard standing next to him reported, Chief, Miss Six encountered the Nie family's Nie Zhenbang on the road today. So, I didn't intervene. The current racing case that's causing a stir in Jingcheng involves Miss Six and young Master Nie. At this, the initially meditating elder Dong sat up with a start, looking surprised. Oh. Wan went out with the young chap of the Nie family. Ha ha, good. Li, arrange for this trouble to be resolved for the young lad. Chapter 80, The Iraqi Ambassador. At the top of the mountain, Nie Zhenbang had a relaxed look on his face, standing behind Dongwan. By now, because of the climb, Dongwan seemed somewhat breathless. Engulfed by the air of nature, Dongwan couldn't help but spread her arms wide, with the cool breeze gently blowing across her face. It was a feeling of immense joy and peace. Due to the exertion, her slightly flushed cheeks elicit a small smile. Overlooking the vast ranges of mountains, Dongwan shouted out loud. Mountains, I love you. My motherland, I love you. Her words echoed back to her as she let go of all the pressure and sadness in her heart. After a while, Dongwan finally remembered Nie Zhenbang was still there. Turning around, she looked at Nie Zhenbang and said with a smile, Nie Zhenbang, thank you. I didn't expect you to understand how to live like this. These words caught Nie Zhenbang by surprise. Looking at Dongwan in astonishment, he replied half-jokingly, Miss Dong Six, in your eyes, am I really such an unbearable figure? Dongwan was somewhat embarrassed by Nie Zhenbang's words. After all, it was him who had just taken her on a thrilling adventure and cheered her up. Now that she was calling him out, she felt a little awkward. Dongwon apologized shyly. Nie Zhenbang, I'm sorry. I meant you're incredibly good at business and were able to go to the Soviet Union all by yourself. I thought you were more of a workaholic. Having said this, Dongwon suddenly frowned, expressed dissatisfaction. Furthermore, stop calling me Miss Dong 6. Just call me Dongwon. I don't like that title. After patting her hands lightly, she laughed. Okay, let's go home now. I feel much better. Thank you for today. Originally, Nie Zhenbang was worried that they might run into traffic police on their way back to the city, but to his surprise, the entire Jingcheng seemed as if nothing had happened. His car passed through several intersections without a second look from the police. The car stopped at the entrance of the Walmart building, bid farewell to Dongwon, and drove into the underground garage of the Walmart building. By now, it was already late May, close to June. There were less than 2 months left for his next deal with Mikhail and his team. Also, there were only 5 months left for the bet with Oh Jung. If he didn't act now, there would be no chance for Nie Zhenbang. As Nie Zhenbang exited the Walmart building, he immediately went to the reception desk. Amidst the surprise of the receptionist, he dialed the phone number of Long's dormitory. As soon as Long answered, he murmured, "Third young master, you called." Given Long's status, it wasn't possible for him to live in the Red Wall compound with Nie Zhenbang. Instead, Nie Zhenbang bought a courtyard house in the eastern part of Jingcheng near Deaton Park. Reincarnated, Nie Zhenbang knew how the price of such a courtyard house in the central city area of Jingcheng had skyrocketed in the future. He bought this place for Long, which was a grand courtyard covering over 2,600 square meters. If this were the 21st century, even thinking about buying such a place would require billions, but now, Nie Zhenbang spent only 400,000 yuan on it. Long, arrange for the purchase of 2 tickets to Baghdad. Let's schedule it a week from now, Nie Zhenbang instructed immediately. August 25, 1958. That was the date when Iraq officially established diplomatic relations with Warsaw. After that, both official and non-official exchanges between Iraq and Warsaw were frequent. This was the information Nie Zhenbang discovered from studying Warsaw's diplomatic history. His choice to turn to Iraq first was also based on his underlying intentions. At this time, it had been just over 10 years since the completion of the Iranian Revolution. After overthrowing the king, Iran adopted a presidential system. Currently, Iran had a close relationship with the Soviet Union. Gorbachev greatly supported Iran, which led Iran to retreat from the initial stages of the Iran-Iraq War and chose instead to move the fight into Iraq's territory. At this moment, Comrade Saddam, who had the strong support of the United States, was having a tough time. If a large amount of weapons could be provided at this time, it would certainly be something Saddam desired. As the saying goes, it is hard to deliver much-needed relief. At this moment, trading with Iran is just icing on the cake, and it's still uncertain whether they even need these weapons. But Iraq is a different story. Hence, this is the main reason why Nie Zhenbang decided to approach Iraq first. Stepping out of the Walmart building, he was driving a Cherokee 2700 produced by the Jingcheng Automobile Factory, a gift from the factory director Liu. After all, Nie Zhenbang is now a major shareholder of the new Jingcheng Automobile Factory, so it was only proper to gift him a car. He drove directly to the Yuying school and parked at the front gate. At this time, school was just over and many people were coming out. Although Nie Zhenbang did not study here, he was considered a celebrity at the Yuying school, occasionally greeted by enthusiastic individuals. Upon seeing Li Wen, Nie Zhenbang called over, "Mosquito, come over." People like Li Wen and Dongwon were about to graduate today. Whether they would go on to university, join the army, or study abroad, depended on their families' arrangements. The atmosphere was tense despite academics being insignificant to these high-profile students. Li Wen, who never carried a school bag, had one slung over his shoulder today. The yellow cloth bag was a classic style from the 50s and 60s, and had Lei Feng's image and Teizu's words, "Learn from Comrade Lei Feng," printed on it. Upon seeing Li Wen's appearance, Nie Zhenbang started laughing. Perhaps the retro trend started with this youngster. Nie Zhenbang then teased, "Mosquito, good for you. You're even carrying a school bag now." Li Wen also started laughing and swung his bag from his front to his back, transforming it into a backpack. He then replied ruefully, brother Nie, don't make fun of me. Isn't graduation coming up? My grandfather has been keeping a close eye on me. I had to put on a show. As for the bag, it's the only antique I could find at home. Brother Nie, didn't you say you were going to Peng City? Why did you come back? Do you need anything from me? In this social circle, no kid above 16, whether they are in society or not, is easy to deal with. That's Nie Zhenbang's keen observation. They may not excel academically, but their political acuity is not matched by ordinary people. Nie Zhenbang then said with a smile, Mosquito, brother Nie needs a favor. Find a way to get the Iraqi ambassador's phone number from your uncle when you go home. It's of utmost importance for my arms deals. Can you do it? Having thought this through, Nie Zhenbang figured that the Li family was influential in the government. Li Wen's uncle, Li Yuman, was currently director of the Middle East Department at the Foreign Ministry. He would be the best person to help Nie Zhenbang build relations with the Iraqi ambassador. By stating his intentions directly, it saved Li Wen the trouble of guessing. Any ambiguity could lead to Li Wen refusing to help for fear of causing trouble for the Li family. It was better to be candid and straightforward. As expected, upon hearing Nie Zhenbang's request, Li Wen laughed and nodded, it's not a big deal. Don't worry, brother Nie. I'll handle this for you. At around 7 in the evening, Nie Zhenbang was watching the news with his grandfather. Suddenly, the phone rang. His grandfather picked it up, but before he could speak, he handed it to Nie Zhenbang. Zhenbang, it's for you. The moment he picked up the phone, Li Wen's voice came through. Brother Nie, it's settled. My uncle has arranged it for you. The meeting will be tomorrow at 8 p.m., in a halal restaurant down Dong Min Street. Remember, the Iraqi ambassador's name is Abdullah Yarabram Sumaida. Thank you for watching. Continue exploring the fascinating world of Chinese novels with us. Hit that subscribe button on Chinese Novel Audiobook to stay updated with our latest stories. And never miss out on a great listen.